Our guy is a complete roleplay maniac. No matter what game he plays, he fully commits himself to his character and never feels embarrassed about it. But for the first time in his life, he seriously regrets taking roleplay this far. Inside the game, his character faces a massive demon surrounded by dark energy. Although his body is already badly injured, he forces himself back onto his feet and grips his sword. The demon laughs at his pathetic condition, calling him a coward who should just accept death. At this point, our guy no longer cares about his carefully planned character. He only entered the game to have some fun in his miserable life. Now, he's suffering so much that he wants to abandon the entire act and return home. Unfortunately, screaming that he wants to go home does absolutely nothing. The story then returns to when he first logged into the game. After the system verifies his connection, an opening video begins. It shows the tragic past he created for his character. Everything starts when his younger sister, Irina, runs outside after thinking their father has returned. Instead, she's murdered. The white dress he bought for her birthday is stained crimson, while a pitch-black blade rests inside her body. His older brother, the family's chief knight, is killed next. Then his older sister, who succeeds him as chief knight, also falls while trying to protect the family. Their mother desperately orders him to run, but the young boy refuses to abandon everyone. He insists that he's a knight too and wants to fight alongside them. But his family only begs him to survive. His father arrives as well, but that changes nothing. Everyone around the boy is slaughtered and his memories become a blur. He remembers grabbing a sword before the entire world turns red, then white, and finally black. Sometime later, he wakes beneath the moonlight. Before he can understand what happened, a mysterious figure appears behind him and calls him a fine vessel. A dark blade suddenly pierces his right arm and sinks deep beneath his flesh. The boy collapses in pain as something evil enters his body. The demon that murdered his family has chosen him as its new vessel. It prays that his soul will be strong enough to endure its evil nature and become someone capable of defeating the demonic. The strange voice then asks whether he can hear it. The opening video ends, and our guy gasps awake inside his character's body. He has arrived at the Tatara trading post, the game's tutorial area. A worker beside him asks whether he plans to get off the wagon. Our guy silently climbs down and walks away, causing the worker to call him a creepy bastard behind his back. Instead of getting offended, our guy is thrilled. The immersion is incredible. The opening video felt like his actual past, and even that ordinary worker felt like a real person instead of an NPC. The entire world looks so convincing that he nearly starts dancing in the middle of the street. The game is called Legend of Heroes, and its VR remake has officially launched today. The original Legend of Heroes came out 15 years ago and was considered a legendary domestic game. Unfortunately, it shut down after only 5 years. Our guy has been eagerly waiting for its return. More importantly, he isn't just a casual gamer. He's a true roleplay maniac who creates a complete history and personality for every character he uses. His current character is named Iryu, and his class is Demon Knight. According to Iryu's background, a demon slaughtered his entire family before possessing his right arm. Now he walks the path of a knight while searching for revenge, using the same demon's power to unleash devastating attacks. But the demon could consume him at any moment. If that happens, everyone around him will die by his own hands, just like his family did. Because of this fear, Iryu keeps everyone at a distance. He's always tense and hides his lonely, unstable heart behind a cold and dangerous exterior. That's our guy's incredible character concept. He even spent hundreds of extra dollars to bring it to life. His long coat moves perfectly whenever he walks, while the armor covering his possessed arm makes a satisfying metallic sound. After admiring his appearance for a while, he realizes he has gotten carried away. Now it's time for the real roleplay to begin. There's only one problem. He has no idea what he's supposed to do. There's no minimap, quest window, or floating marker telling him where to go. He starts wondering whether he must wait for an NPC to approach him. Right on cue, a young boy nervously asks if he's the adventurer known as the Demon Knight. Our guy gets excited, but another problem appears. No dialogue options or response commands show up. Apparently, he must speak for himself. After a brief pause, he fully enters character and calmly confirms that he's the Demon Knight. He then orders the boy to lead the way. His cold expression and deep voice scare the life out of the child. The poor boy immediately agrees and carefully guides him toward the Adventurers Guild. Our guy finds the boy's reaction amazing. He behaves like an actual child walking beside a frightening stranger instead of following programmed movements. Deep inside, our guy wants to reassure him that he doesn't bite, but doing that would ruin his cold, Demon Knight persona. As they walk through the town, he becomes even more impressed. The buildings, streets, and crowds look unbelievably real. Even the people around them hold natural conversations about higher prices, profit margins, refugees, and demons. None of their conversation sounds like repeated lines. They seem to be reacting to one another in real time. Still, our guy reminds himself that they're only game characters. Commercial VR and artificial intelligence are advancing quickly. so the developers must have created incredibly advanced NPCs. The boy eventually leads him into the Tatara Adventurers Guild. Once inside, our guy is blown away again. The wooden floor feels completely real beneath his boots, and every sound echoes naturally through the building. He jokingly wonders whether the developers kidnapped aliens to create technology this advanced. The boy calls for the guild clerk and announces that he has brought the adventurer. A woman approaches and introduces herself as Isrin, the clerk of the Tatara Adventurers Guild. She quickly recognizes him as the Demon Knight because of his unusual appearance and asks to see his adventurer's token. A system window immediately appears directly in front of his face. Our guy struggles to see around it because he only has one working eye as part of his character design. Everything about the game is nearly perfect, yet the developers somehow place the status window in the worst possible location. It's such a simple mistake that it almost feels strangely human. After figuring out the controls, he takes out his token and gives it to Isrin. She verifies his identity and explains that someone is in an incredibly urgent situation. Before she can provide the details, Irayu orders her to lead the way. Our guy already knows how the original game's tutorial works, but he still feels nervous. This is the grand tutorial quest, and he wants to perform his role perfectly. Isren brings him before the guildmaster, a short and bad-tempered old man. As soon as he sees Irayu, the guildmaster comments that the Demon Knight looks even more miserable than the rumors claimed. He then mocks Irayu's ominous face and wonders whether accepting a dangerous request without hearing the details is courage or a death wish. Isren nervously asks the guildmaster to watch his words. Meanwhile, our guy is delighted. He can insult an old dude inside a game without feeling guilty because the dude is just a programmed NPC. He briefly worries that having low affinity might prevent him from receiving the quest, but since this is the tutorial, the game should give it to him regardless. After deciding on the perfect response, he activates his serious Demon Knight persona. With a cold and threatening expression, Irayu tells the guildmaster that his tongue lacks manners. The entire room falls silent. Isrin, the guildmaster, and everyone nearby stare at him in complete shock. Their faces don't look like simple programmed reactions. They look genuinely frightened and offended. Our guy immediately breaks character inside his head. He gets confused and wonders why the NPCs are reacting like real people. Looking back, he should have realized the truth at that very moment. These people were never ordinary NPCs. After Irayu's threatening response leaves the entire guild speechless, our guy gets confused. He has no idea why ordinary NPCs look genuinely shocked by his words. The guildmaster quickly pulls himself together and orders Irayu to follow him if he still believes he can act so confidently after hearing the request. Our guy expects a quest window to appear, but nothing happens. Isrin asks whether the Demon Knight truly volunteered without knowing any of the details. Our guy knows he never had a choice. If the game story tells him to accept a mission, then he must follow it. Still, as a roleplay maniac, he loves how naturally everyone reacts to him. After all, roleplaying is part of the game's content. Fully returning to character, Irayu coldly asks whether they believe his target could pose a threat to him. He even calls the creatures mere insects, causing Isrin and the guild workers to become nervous again. The guildmaster finally begins explaining the request. Several workers were sent into the sewers to repair a problem, but none of them returned. A search party later discovered that a demon nest had formed deep underground. The 13 missing workers are probably already dead. Even so, the guild wants Irayu to destroy the nest and recover their bodies or personal belongings so they can be returned to their families. The whole situation is incredibly dangerous. Every demon hunter sent into the sewers has been slaughtered while the temple is taking far too long to respond. The guild master summoned Irayu because of his frightening reputation, but after seeing his thin body, he wonders whether the demon knight can even swing a sword. Irayu responds by calling the fallen demon hunters weaklings. To him, the mission is nothing more than a simple sewer cleanup. The guildmaster is completely stunned by his arrogance. Meanwhile, our guy almost feels guilty. He's behaving this way only because of his character concept, but everyone's reactions feel so real that he wants to explain himself. But realistic NPCs are still better than annoying players laughing at his roleplay and destroying the mood. Once Irayu officially agrees to the mission, Isrin prepares a contract. His main objective is to eliminate the demons, while recovering the workers' belongings is listed as an additional request. Irayu asks how many workers disappeared and learns that there are 13. The original time limit is 1 month, but because he traveled from far away, the guild gives him an additional 2-day grace period. Even now, no quest window appears. Every detail is being handled through an actual conversation. The reward is 400,000 gal. After the guild takes its 5% brokerage fee, Irayu will receive 380,000 gal. Our guy is totally shocked by the massive reward for a tutorial quest, but the brokerage fee still makes him feel like he's being robbed. He knows it's only a game mechanic, yet losing 20,000 gal creates a strange emptiness inside him. Isran then places a physical contract in front of him and asks for his signature. The moment he signs it, the quest window finally appears. Our guy can hardly believe he had to negotiate the mission and sign a real contract just to activate a tutorial quest. In his mind, the developers are complete psychopaths. Secretly, he loves it. The guild also reserves a room for him at a local inn and gives him a hand-drawn map of the sewer system. Instead of a digital minimap, he must use an actual piece of paper. Before Ireyu leaves, one of the guild workers places the mission in his hands with genuine concern. His expression and voice belong to someone sending another person into a place from which he may never return. The detail is so impressive that our guy feels as though he has stepped onto a theater stage. Since he has accepted the reward, failure is no longer an option. Ireyu enters the sewers alone. As the gate closes behind him, the guard admits that the demon knight is even more terrifying than the rumors claim. He appears completely different from every demon hunter the guard has met before. Now the only question is whether his skills match his frightening reputation. Inside, Ireyu prepares the weapon he bought for his character, the true two-hander of destruction, a giant greatsword said to crush everything in existence and strike fear into even indestructible enemies. It looks incredibly powerful, so naturally he expects it to be perfect for his demon knight. When the first monster appears, Ireyu crushes it with a single swing. Unfortunately, the impact is so loud that our guy immediately checks the weapon's condition. Its durability has already dropped from 100 to 99. He barely touched the monster. Our guy realizes that the sewers are too narrow for such a massive weapon. If the blade constantly strikes the stone walls, it will break before he reaches the nest. His unbelievably cool greatsword is useless here. He reluctantly replaces it with a longsword, the most common type of blade. It may not look as impressive, but it's balanced, versatile, and much easier to use inside the narrow tunnels. Now he's finally ready to hunt. Not long after, dozens of goblin-like demons surround him. Instead of feeling threatened, Ireyu gets excited. He calls them filthy creatures and orders them to keep coming. With several rapid swings, green sword energy tears across the sewer and slices through the entire group. Bodies and severed limbs cover the floor within moments. Ireyu walks through the corpses without a single injury. He finds it pathetic that the town abandoned its sewers because no one could handle creatures this weak. He has already killed 71 demons, recovered all 13 workers' belongings, and collected the keepsakes of 10 fallen adventurers. But not a single monster has dropped an item. Our guy gets seriously pissed off. The drop rate is absolute garbage. He now understands why the tutorial offers such a large amount of money. The developers balance the generous reward by giving him zero loot. He wants to search the goblin corpses himself, but something prevents him from breaking character. A frightened child is watching him. The child is trapped inside the sewer and nearly gets dragged away by several vine-like creatures. Ireyu instantly cuts the monsters apart and catches the child by the leg before he falls. After pulling him to safety, the optional rescue objective is completed. The child reminds our guy of Ireyu's younger sibling from the opening video. His character's background is unbelievably dark. The demon that murdered his family is now sealed inside his arm, so it's a miracle Ireyu hasn't completely lost his mind. Although Ireyu isn't the type to speak openly about his family, our guy believes that even a cold night should become softer around children. He briefly considers patting the child's head, but using the demon-possessed arm for such a gentle action would completely ruin the atmosphere. Instead, Ireyu tells the child that protecting the weak is a knight's duty. The child asks whether he truly is a knight, and Ireyu confirms it. Although he wants to maintain his cold personality, our guy refuses to act cruelly toward a child. He then asks why the child entered the sewers. The child explains that his mother was one of the workers sent underground. When she never returned, he entered the sewer to search for her. The truth nearly breaks our guy's heart. Deep inside, he wants to hug the child and reassure him that he did nothing wrong. But Ireyu's character would never behave that openly. Instead, he firmly tells the child that entering the sewers wasn't his responsibility. He should have trusted the adults and waited somewhere safe. The child lowers his head and apologizes. Ireyu tells him not to apologize because he isn't the person who deserves those words. He then shows the child the belongings recovered from the dead workers. Among them is a keepsake belonging to the child's mother. The child immediately recognizes it and begins crying. His sobs are so painful that our guy can't bring himself to stop him or leave him behind. The child eventually cries until he falls asleep, forcing Ireyu to carry him out of the sewers under one arm. Our guy has heard that VR games use motion capture and real voice actors for their NPCs. That makes him wonder whether a real child performed this heartbreaking scene. He knows it's only a game, but everything feels so real that he can't treat these people like lifeless programs. He's just grateful that none of this is actually happening. On the way out, another system message appears. It warns him that demonized areas can only be purified using holy power or pure golden light. If the corrupted land isn't purified, demons will eventually appear there again. The message orders him to ensure that demons never rise from that place again. But Ireyu continues walking. Looking back, he wishes he had paid closer attention to that warning. If he had understood what it truly meant, perhaps he'd have ended up with fewer regrets. After returning to the guild, an injured dude suddenly rushes inside with terrible news. A red distress flare belonging to the merchant guild has been spotted nearby. Since a red signal means multiple casualties, the whole situation is already an emergency. Somewhere outside the town, a merchant group lies massacred in the forest. Blood covers the ground, and bodies are scattered everywhere. Among them, one surviving man desperately covers his mouth as he struggles to remain silent. Something terrifying is still nearby. A short while before the merchant guild's distress signal appears, Irayu is returning from the sewers with the rescued child. The child finally wakes after they reach the town. While walking beside Irayu, he quietly asks whether his mother is now happy by God's side. The question immediately places our guy in a difficult position. If a god exists in this world, then it would technically be the game developers. As long as those developers aren't complete psychopaths, the child's mother should be somewhere peaceful. Unable to say any of that aloud, Irayu just assures the child that she's happy. The scene is so depressing that our guy struggles to maintain his cold expression. When they return to the Adventurers Guild, Isrin is shocked to see the child. Irayu explains that he's the son of one of the missing workers and entered the sewers to search for his mother. He tells Isrin to ask the child for the remaining details. Irayu then hands her a large sack. He only intends to show it to her, but Isrin immediately takes it from him. The bag nearly drags her to the floor because it weighs almost as much as the child. Inside are the personal belongings of all 13 dead workers and the identification tags of the fallen adventurers. Isrin is stunned. She promises to verify the identities and deliver each item to the correct family. When she recognizes the tags belonging to the dead demon hunters, her expression becomes even more serious. On behalf of the guild, she offers Irayu her deepest gratitude. Inside his head, our guy believes he deserves every bit of it. He had to search the entire sewer without a single objective marker. But when he hears the emotion in Isrin's voice, all his frustration disappears. Hyper-immersion is terrifying. Isrin then asks whether he has finished hunting for the day. Our guy gets confused. Why would any player stop hunting immediately after completing the tutorial? She hesitantly asks whether he plans to return to the sewers and suggests resting first. Rest is the last thing on his mind. He nearly emptied his savings account to prepare for this full dive session. Full dive allows someone to remain inside the gaming capsule for more than 24 hours without worrying about food or sleep, but the special solution required for it's unbelievably expensive. There's no way he'll waste that money by logging out early. Instead, he assumes Azren is hinting at another quest. He wonders whether the sewer mission has a follow-up stage, or whether he must return to purify the demonized area. He did leave quickly because he wanted to escape before suffering suffocation damage from the terrible sewer air. Maybe the game considers that cheap and expects him to finish the purification too. Maintaining his character, Irayu asks why he must return to the sewers. Isrin gets confused by his response. She nervously asks whether he truly eliminated every demon underground. Irayu confirms that he did and demands to know why else he'd have returned. Isrin quietly points toward the rescued child. She assumed he came back only to save him. Our guy doesn't understand why she's overreacting. From his perspective, he didn't clear the sewer unusually quickly. But the real people around him know that several trained demon hunters entered that place and never returned. Irayu somehow destroyed the entire nest alone and came back almost immediately. Since he still believes this is only a game, he interprets Isrin's shock as doubt. Irayu coldly asks whether she's questioning his abilities. Terrified, Isrin immediately apologizes and assures him that she'd never doubt him. The guild agrees to take care of the child while she goes to find the client who posted the mission. While waiting, our guy plans to inspect his new level and skill tree. The client soon arrives and gives him the full reward of 400,000 gal. The guild even agrees to cover the brokerage fee and offers to pay a good price for any materials he collected from the demons. Our guy is caught off guard by how the game's economy works. 15 years ago, quests offered terrible rewards, forcing players to earn money by farming monster drops. In the remake, it looks like most income comes directly from completing quests. Then he remembers a life skill called butchery. That skill allows a player to gather materials from animal and demon corpses. Raising its level can even reveal information about enemies before a battle. If he had chosen butchery, he could have collected materials from every monster in the sewer and made even more money. Still, even if he had known this earlier, he'd have chosen combat skills. After all, Irayu would never lower himself to cut apart worthless bugs for a small amount of money. A true role-play maniac selects skills based entirely on the character concept, not profit. His current abilities include dangerous skills such as Roar of Grudge, Manifestation of Madness, Law of the Hunt, Grappling, and Close-Range Gathering. Meanwhile, gentle or social skills don't fit Irayu's personality at all. Our guy is also happy that Legend of Heroes is a single-player game. He can build his character however he wants without worrying about healing, support, or other party roles. He only hopes that leveling up will unlock even more impressive abilities. Once the sewer quest is officially marked complete, Ireyu decides there's no reason to remain at the guild. Before he can leave, a man suddenly rushes into the building and screams for the guildmaster. The guildmaster reacts like an angry neighborhood grandfather, demanding to know why the dude is charging inside like a wild horse with his backside on fire. Our guy secretly finds the old dude's personality hilarious. The messenger reports that one of the merchant guild's distress flares has been fired nearby. The Holy City Guard has already been informed, but they're responding far too slowly. Our guy immediately recognizes the setup. It's classic early game design, linking one quest directly into the next. The guildmaster gets seriously pissed off. The guards take everyone's money yet still refuse to act when people are dying. He orders the guild's men to leave immediately, then points at Ireyu and tells him to go as well. Our guy already plans to accept, but he must deliver the proper line first. Ireyu warns the guildmaster not to command him. Instead of becoming angry, the old dude says this is a matter of loyalty and promises to pay him generously. That's more than enough. Ireyu declares that they now have a contract and orders the messenger to lead the way. Isrin calls after him, promising to prepare the official paperwork before he returns. This time, the quest window appears immediately. The mission is called People in Danger. It offers several choices, including meeting with the mercenaries or going directly to the battlefield. The main objective is to eliminate the attackers, while the bonus reward depends on how many people survive. Our guy immediately notices something suspicious. This is clearly a time-limited mission. If he wastes time meeting the mercenaries, more victims may die before they arrive. When the messenger suggests joining the other fighters first, Ireyu refuses. He orders the man to take him directly to the place where he's needed. The messenger worries that Ireyu will die alone, but the guildmaster allows him to leave. Since the demon knight cleared the entire sewer without help, he won't die easily. Our guy is delighted that the grumpy old man understands him so well. The messenger explains that horses are waiting nearby. Our guy isn't worried because he once became famous in a horse riding simulator. As they race toward the battlefield, our guy hopes the survivors can stay alive until he arrives. Those people are precious experience points after all. By the time they reach the area, dozens of demons have surrounded the remaining merchants. Several bodies already cover the ground, while the survivors desperately defend themselves. Ireyu charges into the battlefield and releases a powerful attack from his sword. The ground explodes, and several demons are instantly torn apart. He announces victory to his sword and glory to the heavens, fully enjoying his dramatic entrance. The merchants become hopeful when they see reinforcements, but their excitement quickly turns into confusion when they realize only one warrior has arrived. Some assume Ireyu must be the vanguard of a larger force. Others just beg him to save them. One injured merchant is trapped beside the burning wagons and nearly killed by another demon. Just before the creature reaches him, Ireyu appears and destroys it. He asks whether the man wishes to be saved. When the merchant desperately confirms it, Ireyu promises to slaughter every monster before the man's blood runs dry. The merchant can hardly believe Ireyu intends to fight alone. Ireyu refuses to answer such a pointless question. Dark red energy explodes around him. With his demonic arm and sword working together, he unleashes countless crimson slashes across the battlefield. The demons don't even have time to react. Their bodies are cut apart from every direction. Heads, arms, and weapons fly through the air as Ireyu tears through the entire horde within seconds. When the attack ends, the battlefield falls silent. Ireyu stands alone among a mountain of demon corpses, surrounded by a terrifying red aura. The merchants he saved can only stare at him in fear. Instead of seeing a heroic knight, they wonder whether the man before them is an even more dangerous monster. Far away, a group of powerful travelers also senses the energy released during the battle. A red-haired armored woman tells the Archmage that they must travel toward the Tatara trading post as soon as the sun rises. When asked why, she gives a simple answer. An incredibly powerful demonic presence has appeared near the town. The battlefield finally falls silent. Ireyu stands among the remains of the monsters, only to realize that a piece of demon flesh has somehow ended up in his mouth. He instantly wonders whether the game's realism truly needed to go this far. One of the surviving merchants thanks him for saving them, but the relief doesn't last. A wounded man suddenly begins screaming as demonic energy spreads through his body. A system message explains that anyone attacked by a demon has a chance of becoming corrupted. As the corruption grows, the victim suffers stronger status effects and may eventually transform into a demon. The merchants only have sedatives. They possess nothing that can remove the demonic energy itself. Ireyu remembers that this mechanic existed in the original game. Every attack from a demon could increase a player's corruption level. But the Demon Knight is already half demon and completely immune, so he had forgotten about it. Fortunately, his starting inventory contains demonic energy antidotes. The medicine can purify humans, calm their madness, and temporarily protect them from further corruption. The survivor count may affect his quest reward, so Ireyu quickly hands out antidotes, sedatives, and bandages. He orders the merchants to gather anyone who is wounded or showing signs of corruption. Only then does he understand why the game gave his character so many medical supplies at the beginning. Even with his help, the survivor counter drops from 30 to 27. Some people can't be saved in time. Reinforcements soon arrive, and the surviving merchants celebrate as the first rescue quest is completed. But Irayu isn't allowed to enjoy the victory. A second quest immediately appears, ordering him to recover 25 bodies and retrieve 30 scattered items from the battlefield. He's deeply annoyed. Carrying corpses would completely ruin the fearsome image of a demon knight. Then he notices that the work performed by the other people is also being counted toward his quest. Irayu folds his arms and watches. The workers grumble that he's acting smug after making them handle all the cleanup. Irayu feels no guilt. He fought every monster himself, and as far as he's concerned, they're only NPCs. Allowing them to finish his quest is just efficient. While collecting the bodies, the merchants discuss the attack. They have no idea why demons would appear so far west. Barbarians would have made sense, but demons are another matter entirely. Irayu listens carefully. The conversation sounds too detailed to be meaningless. He suspects it's preparing him for the next part of the story. Then the workers discover something strange. Several corpses are missing. Even after considering the bodies destroyed during the battle, the numbers still don't match. Someone or something must have taken them. The merchants are frightened and choose to return to the city. They also plan to complain about the guards, since they pay taxes precisely to be protected from incidents like this. Irayu instantly suspects that a demon follower or warlock may be involved. The missing corpses will probably become evidence in a future investigation quest. Once all 25 bodies and 30 items have been recovered, Irayu returns to the Adventurers Guild. The guildmaster praises his work, but Irayu coldly reminds him to provide the proper payment. The old dude becomes offended, asking whether Irayu thinks he's too poor to pay an adventurer. Before Irayu can leave, however, the guildmaster stops him and offers him another commission. The job is to exterminate demons in the Northwest Forest. Isrin points out that the area was already assigned to other adventurers. The guildmaster angrily explains that they haven't received a single report from those people. The situation has become dangerous, and after witnessing Irayu's strength, he believes Irayu is the best person to send. Although the guildmaster has a terrible temper, Irayu can tell that he genuinely worries about the missing adventurers. He likes this sort of rough but caring old man character. Irayu confirms that all he must do is eliminate the demons in the forest. Isrin begins arranging the new contract, though the guild will still need to settle matters with the adventurers who were previously assigned to it. It's already late, so Irayu is guided to an inn. The remaining details will be discussed the next morning. After spending one night at the inn, Irayu meets the guild's representative and completes the formal contract. The representative says Irayu doesn't have to leave that same day, though the guild would appreciate it if he handled the mission as quickly as possible. Irayu is interested in only one thing, the reward. The demon has a bounty of 700,000 gal. Inside, Irayu can barely contain his excitement. That amount alone would already make the quest worth accepting. But to maintain his cold and intimidating persona, he just asks whether there's anything more. The representative mistakes the question for dissatisfaction and adds another 200,000 gal because this is also a private guild commission. Irayu is stunned. He had only been asking if that was their final offer. Unsure whether this is scripted or whether the game allows negotiation without a negotiation skill, he remains silent. Once again, the representative misunderstands him. Believing Irayu still considers the payment too low, the man adds another 300,000 gal. The total reward has now reached 1,200,000 gal. Irayu is ecstatic. Without saying anything, he has increased the reward by 500,000. He starts wondering whether he's secretly a natural-born negotiator, and whether he should try behaving this way in real life. Outwardly, he remains perfectly calm. He orders the guild to prepare a carriage and announces that he'll depart immediately. When the representative suggests resting for another day, Irayu declares that he has no intention of wasting time while a demon is free to roam. The dramatic answer preserves his demon knight image perfectly. Unfortunately, his dedication earns him a 10-hour carriage ride. As the carriage travels toward the Northwest Forest, Irayu discovers that the game has even programmed the feeling of his legs falling asleep. There's no skip button and no way to shorten the journey. He curses the game's excessive realism and wonders why he works so hard for wealth and glory when role-playing requires this much suffering. His only comfort is the young errand boy accompanying him. The boy keeps staring at Irayu with open admiration, reminding him just how convincing the game's NPC behavior can be. Irayu tells himself to endure it. Once the quest is complete, his wealth may double. Perhaps after reaching the maximum level, he can even explore the game's detailed real estate system. The boy eventually gathers enough courage to ask whether Irayu is an adventurer. Technically, Irayu borrowed money and registered with the Adventurers Guild, but a proud demon knight would never think of himself as a mere adventurer. He bluntly denies it. The boy looks disappointed, making Irayu worry that he may have been too harsh. He softens his answer and explains that, while he isn't an adventurer, he performs similar work. He then allows the boy to ask whatever he wants. The child asks whether Irayu has ever seen the ocean. Irayu is charmed by the boy's curiosity. When asked what the ocean looks like, he gives a suitably dramatic answer. It's as blue as the boy's eyes, with waves that ripple like his curly hair. The boy's eyes brighten as he realizes that, according to Irayu, they resemble the ocean. Though the carriage remains uncomfortable, the rest of the journey is peaceful. Irayu has no idea what is waiting for him in the northwest forest. As evening falls over the trees, the peaceful atmosphere is shattered by the violent clash of weapons. Irayu blocks a powerful strike and finds himself facing the fierce red-haired warrior who had been heading toward Tatara. She glares at him with furious green eyes. Mistaking Irayu for an enemy, she accuses him of becoming human and betraying God. Then she raises her weapon and declares that, in God's name, she'll execute him. Irayu enters the northwest forest alone and begins searching for the demon mentioned in his new quest. At first, he worries about finding a single target in such a massive forest. Fortunately, his character possesses an enemy detection skill. The ability allows him to sense anyone nearby who feels hostile toward him. The moment he activates it, the system warns him that a hostile target is within 10 meters. Before Irayu can locate the enemy, someone attacks him from behind. It's the red-haired warrior from the Order. She charges at him with a massive shield and accuses him of betraying God the moment he became human. Irayu has no idea what she's talking about, but he has no time to ask. She swings her weapon with enough force to crush him. Irayu barely blocks the attack with his sword. The impact is so heavy that he instantly gets worried about his weapon's durability. If he continues blocking attacks like that, his sword may break before he even finds the demon he came to kill. After creating some distance, Irayu asks if she belongs to the Order. The red-haired warrior confirms it. More importantly, she announces that she has come to execute him. Irayu is completely confused. He thought priests were supposed to show mercy and perform good deeds in God's name. Instead, this woman attacked him without warning and now intends to kill him. Still maintaining his character, he condemns the Order for becoming nothing more than a group of violent thugs. The warrior gets seriously pissed off. She declares that a mere demon has no right to speak about violence. That word immediately catches Irayu's attention. A demon? He carefully studies the situation. Based on her equipment, abilities, and religious speech, she's clearly part of a priest class, but no quest has appeared. This means the confrontation isn't a special event or a story trigger. For some reason, she truly believes Irayu is a demon. He checks his inventory, but he isn't carrying any cursed items that could cause such a misunderstanding. Then he remembers his arm. Irayu's character has a demon-possessed arm. The silver gauntlet was created to hide it because his demon knight despises demons and can't bear looking at the corrupted limb. Although he hunts demons, the arm constantly makes him question whether he can still consider himself human. Instead of trying to explain the misunderstanding, Irayu realizes this is the perfect chance to develop his character. He draws his sword and angrily warns the warrior not to call him a demon. He calls her a fanatic before delivering a dramatic battle cry about victory for his sword and glory for the heavens. The warrior only becomes angrier. She calls him an apostate who surrendered to evil but still dares to imitate a knight. She then orders him to submit to God's judgment. Irayu can't even deny the accusation about imitating a knight. His character was never officially knighted, but that also means he has no reason to fight honorably. Irayu disappears into the darkness of the forest. The Inquisitor calls him a cunning coward for hiding, but he's already preparing his next attack. He activates Breaker, a skill that coats his sword in mana and releases a powerful downward strike over a wide area. Because Irayu is a demon knight, the attack also carries demonic energy. He drops from above and brings the glowing blade down with tremendous force. The Inquisitor raises her enormous shield. The ground erupts beneath them, but the shield completely blocks Irayu's attack. Irayu mocks her for hiding behind it like a frightened baby turtle. He then claims that he'll take her head and offer it to everyone who has suffered because of people like her. The Inquisitor responds by raising her weapon toward the sky and calling upon God's power. Brilliant light spreads across the forest. Irayu shields his eyes as holy energy surrounds her entire body. At first, he can't tell whether she used an attack or a strengthening spell. After watching her more carefully, he realizes it's both an attack and defense buff. He can't help feeling jealous. In the original game, that skill only strengthened the user's weapon. In this version, it covers the Inquisitor's entire body. Her armor, weapon, and shield are all protected by holy power. It's an unbelievably powerful improvement. To make matters worse, the class advantage between holy and demonic classes is still active. The Inquisitor's attacks are dealing roughly 1.3 times their normal damage against him. She charges again while spreading waves of light around her. Irayu realizes she isn't trying to strike him directly. She's attempting to purify him by covering the surrounding area in holy energy. Fortunately, priest classes are slow. Even with the difference in their levels, the Demon Knight has a clear advantage in attack speed. Irayu avoids the waves of light and launches several rapid attacks, but none of them reach her. No matter how quickly he moves, the Inquisitor's huge shield blocks everything. Her armor is thick, her defense is high, and her shield seems almost impossible to break. Ireyu understands that attacking it directly will only destroy his sword. He needs another plan. The Inquisitor challenges him to stop hiding and face her head-on if he isn't ashamed before God. Ireyu accepts. He rushes directly toward her, making it appear as though he plans to attack the shield again. The Inquisitor braces herself for the collision. But Ireyu has no intention of wasting another strike against that wall. He uses the shield as an opening, quickly changing his position and slipping past her defense. The Inquisitor's equipment may be strong, but it's also incredibly heavy. Her movements are much slower than his. Before she can properly turn, Ireyu leaps above her. He raises his sword as demonic energy explodes around him. The forest is covered in a deep red glow, and the force of his attack tears through the ground. The Inquisitor desperately lifts her shield and blocks once again, but this time, the power forces her backward. Ireyu instantly moves to attack from another angle. A Demon Knight is one of the strongest classes when it comes to attack speed. While the Inquisitor struggles to reposition her heavy shield, Ireyu is already behind her and preparing the finishing blow. He orders her to pay for her reckless accusations. Before his sword can reach her, a wall of fire erupts between them. Ireyu stops just in time. The spell didn't come from the Inquisitor. Someone else has entered the battlefield. A white-furred lion carrying a large magical staff walks through the forest. She apologizes for arriving late and announces that she'll assist the Inquisitor. The red-haired warrior immediately welcomes her as the Archmage. Ireyu freezes. He finally understands the classes of his two opponents. The red-haired warrior is an Inquisitor, the third advancement of the Priest branch. The newly arrived Beastman is an Archmage, the third advancement of the Mage branch. Basically, Ireyu is now facing a high-level healer and tank supported by a powerful ranged damage dealer. Meanwhile, he's only a low-level beginner who has barely completed the tutorial. Ireyu stands alone against two enemies who have already reached their third-class advancement. One is an Inquisitor with nearly unbreakable defenses. The other is an Archmage capable of attacking from a distance. Meanwhile, Ireyu is a beginner who has only completed the tutorial. He can hardly believe the game is targeting him this unfairly. Fighting these two is like throwing an egg at a mountain. He sees no possible way to win, especially when the game doesn't even provide an option to reduce pain. But the pain isn't his greatest concern. Dying will probably come with a heavy penalty. Then Ireyu suddenly considers the possibility that this situation is intentional. Death is still only another game mechanic. Perhaps the developers expect players to die during the tutorial. Maybe useful features such as skipping journeys and reducing pain will finally become available after his first death. Ireyu convinces himself that the game was made painfully realistic so players could experience its difficulties before unlocking those features. With that, he accepts his fate. If he's going to die anyway, he refuses to beg for mercy. He'll say whatever he wants and end his life in the most dramatic way possible. Still acting like the proud Demon Knight, Ireyu mocks the Archmage. He claims the title of Sage must have lost its meaning if someone so powerful wanders around threatening travelers with a reckless child. The Inquisitor gets seriously pissed off and calls Ireyu a contractor of demons. She insists the Archmage is only performing his duty. Before the fight can continue, Ireyu's enemy detection skill activates again. Another hostile presence has entered the 10-meter radius. Ireyu wonders if his enemies have received even more reinforcements, but the Archmage immediately recognizes the presence. It's Medusa. Ireyu is annoyed because identifying the demon first should have been his dramatic moment. Hundreds of black snakes slither through the trees and gather into a single enormous serpent. At the center of the swarm is one small red snake. The Inquisitor accuses Ireyu of summoning an ally while pretending to be innocent. Ireyu calls her blind. He declares that after tearing the demon apart, he'll return and tear apart her foolish mouth as well. A system description appears before him. Medusa is a demon formed from hundreds of snakes gathered around one red snake. Whenever the creature senses danger, the snakes separate and scatter in every direction. Ireyu instantly recognizes it from the original game. More importantly, the demon has appeared at the perfect moment. He knew the confrontation with two advanced classes had to be part of a story event. The developers couldn't possibly be cruel enough to kill a beginner for absolutely no reason. His faith in them is instantly restored. Ireyu turns away from the Inquisitor and Archmage. With a wild smile, he prepares to kill Medusa. The Inquisitor assumes he's just joining forces with his demonic ally and begins moving to attack him. The Archmage tells her to wait after noticing something unusual about Ireyu's actions. In the original game, players had to keep attacking Medusa until its countless snakes scattered. Only then could they search among them for the red snake that controlled the entire body. But Ireyu has no patience for such a slow method. Since the game has made everything more realistic, the position of Medusa's true body should be obvious. The red snake must be hiding where the massive serpent's heart would normally be. Ireyu charges directly into the swarm and tears through the twisting snakes. He plunges his demon-possessed arm into the center of the creature, allowing the snakes to bite and wrap around him. Blood covers his clothes and face, but he continues searching. He finally spots the red snake. Using his sword would be too risky. The target is small and moving among hundreds of identical bodies, so one missed swing would allow it to escape. Instead, Ireyu reaches out with his armored hand. He grabs the red snake and rips it from the swarm. Before it can struggle free, he crushes it with his gauntlet. The red snake dies instantly. Without its true body, the enormous Medusa falls apart. The remaining snakes scatter through the forest while Ireyu stands in the middle of them, covered in blood. He can't help admiring how clean his move was. With Medusa defeated, Ireyu decides it's time to continue his hardcore demon hunter roleplay. He walks toward the Inquisitor, an archmage, crushing the remaining snakes beneath his boots. He praises the Inquisitor for having enough sense not to interfere and rush toward her own death. Then he reminds her of his earlier promise. As a reward for staying out of his way, he's now ready to rip open her mouth. Before the fight can begin again, the archmage stops him. The archmage admits that there has been a misunderstanding and apologizes for attacking him. He asks Ireyu to hear their explanation. The Inquisitor is confused. She has no idea why Ireyu and Medusa were fighting if they were both demons. The archmage corrects her. Ireyu isn't someone who formed a contract with demons. The Inquisitor has a hard time believing it. She clearly saw him using demonic power, so she can't imagine any other explanation. The archmage explains that even the Academy only mentions people like Ireyu in theory. Normally, when a parasitic demon possesses a human, the victim loses all free will and becomes a mindless creature similar to a zombie. Ireyu is completely different. He appears to have suppressed the demon inside him through sheer willpower, taking control of its strength and using that power as his own. The Inquisitor believes such a thing should be impossible without divine power. The archmage calmly reminds her that nothing in the world is truly impossible. Some things are only considered impossible because no one has accomplished them yet. Otherwise, there would be no way to explain the young dude standing before them. Ireyu quietly listens to the entire explanation. He's delighted that these advanced NPCs are discussing the rare nature of his character as though they're presenting a third-person class analysis. Once they finish, Ireyu decides it's time to show off his Demon Knight personality again. He angrily asks whether they're finished whispering about him directly in front of his face. He's especially offended that they compared him to a mindless zombie. The archmage admits that they made a massive mistake. He promises to grant Ireyu anything within his power as compensation. Ireyu knows the offer will probably amount to a few coins or some beginner equipment. Even so, it gives him another chance to act intimidating. He asks whether the archmage is truly willing to grant anything. Then Ireyu demands that both of them cut out their own tongues. The archmage hesitates. Ireyu instantly rejects the apology. If they can't even fulfill that demand, then their regret is meaningless. He adds that he'd love nothing more than to rip off their jaws and hang them at the village gates, but doing so would make him no better than the demons he hates. After delivering that dramatic threat, Ireyu orders them to get lost. Inside, he's having the time of his life. The exchange reminds him of performing theater improvisation with his college friends. An edgy and powerful character only looks impressive when everyone else reacts properly, and the NPCs are responding perfectly to everything he says. Ireyu silently thanks the game's advanced artificial intelligence. He turns to leave, but suddenly remembers his original mission. He still needs proof that he killed the demon. Ireyu grabs Medusa's red corpse and prepares to take it back to the guild. When the Inquisitor stops him, he assumes she intends to complain about him taking the body. He becomes annoyed. A beginner needs the corpse to complete the quest, but the Inquisitor doesn't try to claim it. Instead, she asks Ireyu to hear her out as well. Ireyu's irritation immediately disappears. He wonders if she's about to give him another quest. Instead of giving him another quest, she sincerely apologizes for attacking him. Ireyu is surprised. He expected an elite teenage NPC to remain stubborn and protect her pride. Based on her personality, he imagined she'd continue accusing him of being an evil monster who knew nothing about justice. Instead, the Inquisitor admits that explaining her reasons would only sound like an excuse. She takes full responsibility for striking first and asks Ireyu to accept her apology. Her honesty makes the situation awkward for him. Even if she's only controlled by artificial intelligence, her apology feels completely sincere. Ireyu wants to tell her that everything is fine and that the misunderstanding was reasonable under the circumstances, but doing that would ruin his character. The Inquisitor also refuses to offer only words. She promises to provide any compensation within her power. Ireyu instantly wonders if this is a companion recruitment event. Obtaining a third advancement Inquisitor as a party member would give him an incredibly powerful defender and healer. Unfortunately, Ireyu doesn't want a companion. His Demon Knight is supposed to be a cold loner who keeps everyone at a distance. Traveling with an eager servant of God wouldn't fit his personality. The possible rewards are tempting, but becoming involved with the Inquisitor and Archmage would probably create more trouble. He chooses to remain in character. Irayu rejects the apology and claims that he has no need for her hypocrisy. The Inquisitor insists that she isn't being dishonest and tries to explain herself, but the Archmage tells her to calm down. The Archmage reminds her that they must leave as well. Although they failed to kill Medusa themselves, the demon has been destroyed. Their purification mission is complete, and they must report what happened. The Inquisitor reluctantly agrees. It's already late, so the three begin walking through the forest. Irayu soon notices that the Inquisitor and Archmage are still behind him. He has no idea why they're following him. He opened his map and selected the straightest path back to town, but the two NPCs shouldn't be able to see his map. Irayu assumes the Inquisitor must be disappointed after spending an entire week searching for Medusa without killing it herself, but she doesn't care about losing the battle. As a servant of God, purifying the forest is also part of her duty. As long as the demon is gone, the result is acceptable. That only makes Irayu more suspicious. Their work is finished, so he wants them to go another direction. He starts wondering if there's still more story content connected to them. To test their reaction, Irayu reminds them that he ordered them to get lost. He asks whether they consider his words a joke. The Archmage calmly apologizes for offending him. He then explains that they aren't following Irayu at all. They're using pathfinding magic, and it looks like all three of them are traveling toward the same destination. Irayu is immediately embarrassed. The two NPCs also have their own version of a map system. They weren't secretly following him, they were just using magical GPS. Irayu quietly moves aside to let them pass. The Inquisitor gets worried when he suddenly leaves the safe path. She warns him that walking alone through the forest at night is dangerous. Irayu answers that the forest is dangerous only to weaklings like her. He tells her not to judge him by her pathetic standards. Inside, he desperately begs the game to let him leave alone and preserve his roleplay. The Inquisitor watches him disappear into the forest. She asks the Archmage whether allowing him to leave is truly safe. Irayu is already incredibly powerful despite his unusual condition. If the demon inside him ever takes control, he could become a terrible threat. The Archmage admits that even an old and experienced mage like him has never encountered anyone like Irayu. He hopes the young dude will never surrender to the demon, but he also knows that hope and reality are often completely different. Fortunately, the Archmage secretly placed tracking magic on Irayu. Since they're all heading toward the same town, he intends to watch the young demon knight for a while. The Inquisitor prays for God's protection to remain with him. Meanwhile, Irayu begins the long journey back. He confidently left his two possible companions behind, but he soon discovers a cruel truth. It took 8 hours by carriage just to reach the forest. Now he has no carriage. At first, Irayu has a hard time believing the game would force him to walk the entire distance. Games are supposed to be fun, so there must be a shortcut, fast travel system, or hidden transportation option. There's none. Irayu walks through the night, continues through the morning, and keeps moving for the rest of the day. He thinks about camping in the forest, but the wildlife is far too active. Strange creatures surround him whenever he tries to rest. The game's realistic ecosystem makes sleeping outside nearly impossible. After walking for an entire day, Irayu finally reaches Tatara. The moment the town entry notification appears, he nearly cries with relief. He curses the game for creating such an accurate and exhausting travel system, though he's forced to admit it's still an incredibly well-made piece of trash. Despite the late hour, Irayu goes directly to the guild. The employee on duty informs him that it's too late to submit a quest and asks him to return later. Irayu silently releases his intimidating aura and orders the employee to confirm his mission. The frightened worker immediately agrees. When Irayu places the bag containing Medusa's corpse on the counter, the employee can hardly believe that he has already returned. Irayu only left 2 days earlier, yet he traveled all the way to the forest, killed the demon, and came back. The worker opens the bag and discovers the dead red snake. After examining it, the guild confirms that the demon was Medusa. They still intend to inspect the forest in the morning, but everything Irayu reported appears to be correct. The quest is marked as completed. The final details and reward will be processed after sunrise. Irayu is too tired to care. His head is spinning, and he wonders whether he's becoming old. In the past, he could stay awake all night playing games without feeling this weak. The guild employee recommends an inn. Isrin then calls over the cheerful young errand boy and asks him to guide Irayu to the White Wind Inn. The boy is delighted to see Irayu again. He assumes Irayu must be exhausted because he rushed to complete the mission. Irayu notices that the child seems happier every time they meet. At least someone is enjoying the situation. On the way to the inn, the boy excitedly asks what kind of demon Irayu fought and whether it was powerful. Still maintaining his cold personality, Irayu states that demons aren't a subject to be discussed for entertainment. The boy immediately becomes quiet and apologizes. Irayu feels terrible. He knew his character's response would frighten the child, yet he still said it. Inwardly, he apologizes for being such a terrible adult and chooses to give the boy a generous tip when they reach the inn. Once inside his room, Irayu collapses onto the bed. He begins seriously considering whether he should quit the game. What was supposed to be entertainment now feels like extreme physical labor. His fatigue status has reached 100%, but the exhaustion feels real. Irayu has no idea how a number inside a status window can make his actual body feel so weak. If he hadn't purchased the expensive full dive solution, he'd have rage quit already. For now, he chooses to sleep for 6 hours. He'll choose whether to continue playing after he wakes up. Irayu selects the sleep option and quickly loses consciousness. Sometime during the night, his door slowly opens. A shadowy figure enters the room and approaches the sleeping demon knight. The intruder raises a spiked bat with both hands. Then the bat comes crashing down toward Irayu's body. While Irayu sleeps, a system warning suddenly enters his mind. A hostile target is within 10 meters. Irayu forces himself awake just as a spiked bat comes crashing toward his body. He grabs his sword and blocks the spiked bat at the last possible moment. The intruder is a common robber. Irayu shoves him backward and immediately gets angry at his enemy detection skill. It claims to detect enemies from 10 meters away, yet it only warned him when the attacker was practically standing over his bed. The robber tries to overpower him, but Irayu easily pushes him aside. The man has no idea how someone who was sleeping moments earlier can possess such monstrous strength. Irayu draws his weapon and swings. The robber narrowly avoids being cut apart. Terrified, he admits that he only wanted Irayu's coin purse. Irayu orders him to drop the weapon and place both hands on his head. Then Irayu realizes that his intimidating demon knight is speaking like a police officer. The robber drops his weapon and begs for mercy. Irayu coldly mocks him. He never realized that coin purses could be obtained by crushing someone's skull while they were sleeping. The robber suddenly agrees that this is normally how robbery works. He reaches for his weapon again and tries to attack. Irayu is already prepared. He moves behind the robber, avoids the desperate strike, and knocks him down with ease. The man falls unconscious before he can land a single proper hit. Irayu looks down at him with disgust. Even as a casual player suffering from extreme exhaustion, allowing himself to be robbed by such a weak enemy would be humiliating. He grabs the unconscious robber and drags him out of the room. Irayu originally thought this might be some large bandit raid event, but it looks like one random criminal just walked through the inn's door and entered his room. He can't understand what kind of event this is supposed to be. When Irayu reaches the first floor, one of the inn employees notices the unconscious man. The woman screams after seeing his limp body. She instantly assumes Irayu has murdered someone. Irayu is annoyed. The robber is clearly still breathing, so he has no idea how she reached that conclusion. He only wants everyone to calm down so he can return to sleep. Before he can explain, enemy detection activates again. Another hostile target is within 10 meters. The Inquisitor suddenly charges into the inn. She sees Irayu standing over an unmoving man and immediately accuses him of committing murder. She declares that she knew a zombie with a mind of its own could never be trusted. Irayu blocks her weapon. He can hardly believe this troublesome priest has appeared again. Even worse, she always arrives during situations that make him look guilty. The entire storyline feels as though it's being forced to create misunderstandings between them. But Irayu isn't entirely unhappy. Whenever the Inquisitor appears, his immersion becomes much stronger. She makes it easy for him to enter the Demon Knight's personality, and role-playing against her is genuinely fun. According to the lore Irayu created, his Demon Knight has several words that immediately make him furious. Insults involving demons, God, or losing his humanity are enough to send him into a rage. The Inquisitor somehow presses every one of those buttons whenever they meet. Irayu reminds her that he warned her not to follow him. He promised to kill her if she ignored him. The Inquisitor refuses to listen. She calls him a filthy demon who stole a human body. That's exactly the kind of response Irayu wanted. He smiles and claims that she's eager to meet her end. The inn's guests begin gathering around them. Irayu warns the innocent people to move away unless they want to become involved. Demonic energy gathers around his sword as he prepares to activate a skill. Before he can attack, glowing magical chains wrap around his body and weapon. Irayu instantly recognizes Binding, a mage-class crowd control skill that temporarily stops an enemy from moving or taking action. The Archmage finally appears and asks them both to wait. Irayu wonders where the mage disappeared to while the Inquisitor was causing trouble. Binding will eventually end on its own, but for the sake of his roleplay, he decides that he should struggle against it. He threatens to slice off the Inquisitor's jaw and tear out her tongue. The Inquisitor is confused by the Archmage's interference. She believes Irayu has committed murder and demands to know why the Archmage is stopping her. As Irayu pulls against the magical chains, demonic energy erupts from his body. The chains begin to crack. With one final burst of strength, Irayu completely shatters the binding spell. The Inquisitor is stunned. She has no idea how he broke free from an advanced Archmage's magic so easily. Irayu silently agrees with her. In the original game, binding was so powerful that players constantly demanded that the developers weaken it. Anyone fighting an Archmage in competitive matches complained about the unfair control skill. Even Ireyu used to rage quit whenever an Archmage trapped his slow class with it. Yet he just destroyed the spell through physical force. He has no idea how that was possible. Before another battle begins, the Archmage asks both of them to calm down. There appears to have been another misunderstanding. The Inquisitor insists that she saw Ireyu commit murder with her own eyes. The Archmage scolds her for allowing her hatred of evil to blind her. He tells her to look carefully at the man lying on the floor and decide whether Ireyu truly killed anyone. The robber groans and weakly raises his head. He's still alive. The Inquisitor is left speechless. Ireyu admits internally that he wanted to kill the robber, but he didn't actually do it. The Archmage then asks Ireyu to explain what happened. He knows it's shameless to demand answers after attacking Ireyu without asking questions, but many guests have already gathered. Explaining the situation will prevent more fear and rumors. Only then does Ireyu notice the large crowd watching them. The Inquisitor orders the robber to confess. Ireyu tells the man to stop showing everyone his backside and explain himself properly. The robber immediately turns around and begs for mercy. Standing over him with his sword, Ireyu asks whether he really needs to repeat himself. The frightened robber finally confesses. He entered Ireyu's room because he wanted his money. He had seen Ireyu give the young errand boy a generous tip, so he assumed the demon knight was carrying a large amount of money. The Inquisitor finally understands that Ireyu was the victim. The entire misunderstanding is cleared. Ireyu is relieved, but also exhausted by how much trouble the situation caused. He warns the inn's workers to improve their security before another robber walks into a guest's room. Then he announces that he's leaving. The employees panic and try to stop him, but Ireyu has already decided to find somewhere else to rest. Fortunately, he doesn't need to pack. All of his unequipped equipment can be stored inside his inventory, making it easy to leave at any time. As Ireyu walks out of the inn, he glances back at the Inquisitor and Archmage. Something begins bothering him. The previous night had been dark and chaotic, so he never studied their faces carefully. Now that he can see them under the inn's lights, both of them look strangely familiar. The Inquisitor calls after him. Ireyu takes another look at her face and suddenly realizes that he has seen her somewhere before. His only thought is that he may be in serious trouble. Under the moonlight, Ireyu finally gets a proper look at the two strangers who attacked him. The young priest's fiery red hair, bright green eyes, and strangely familiar braid make something click in his mind. That hair is practically the infamous death flag hairstyle, the sort of hairstyle worn by characters who are destined to meet a tragic end. More importantly, Ireyu recognizes the priest as the official Inquisitor character from the Legend of Heroes. The white lion beside him is familiar as well. Tall, elegant, and covered in sleek white fur, the old beastman belongs to the Sagi tribe. His appearance matches the game's official Archmage design perfectly. This discovery leaves Ireyu deeply unsettled. In the original game, characters from the other classes didn't normally wander into one another's stories unless they were controlled by real players. Each class had its own separate character story. Yet ever since Ireyu arrived in this version of the game, events have repeatedly pushed these official characters into his path. He starts wondering whether forming a party with them is mandatory. The very thought irritates him. He deliberately created a solitary, demon-possessed warrior who wanted nothing to do with others. If he had wanted to travel in a cheerful group, he'd never have chosen such an antisocial role-playing concept. Still, the game appears to offer an unusual amount of freedom. Perhaps joining them is optional. Ireyu chooses to test that possibility. Maintaining his cold demon knight persona, he asks whether the Inquisitor failed to understand his order to be silent. He then mockingly wonders if a noble servant of the temple considers the words of a demon unworthy of attention. The Inquisitor immediately panics. Dropping to the ground, the priest insists that there was no intention to disrespect him. The false accusation and sudden attack can't possibly be forgiven with a simple apology. So if words are insufficient, the Inquisitor offers something more valuable. The priest offers Ireyu her head. Ireyu stares down in disbelief. Internally, he's screaming. He only wants to travel alone. He isn't some deranged murderer who collects heads whenever someone inconveniences him. He has no idea why the Inquisitor's thoughts jumped straight from apology to execution. He silently wonders whether the temple teaches its priests to behave this way, or whether the Archmage is responsible. The Archmage looks just as horrified. The old beastman has the expression of someone watching a disaster unfold while having absolutely no idea how to stop it. Unfortunately, Ireyu has trapped himself. His demon knight would never respond to this dramatic offer by nervously laughing and telling everyone to forget about it. That would completely break character. He needs a solution that spares the Inquisitor while still sounding ruthless enough for his role. Before he can devise one, the Archmage steps forward. The white lion bows and pleads for tolerance. The Inquisitor has only recently left the temple and knows almost nothing about the outside world. As the more experienced traveler, the Archmage should have stopped the misunderstanding before it became an attack. If someone must be punished, then the punishment should fall on him instead. The Inquisitor instantly objects. The attack was entirely the priest's mistake, so the Archmage must not accept responsibility for it. The two begin arguing over which of them should be punished. Irayu watches them with growing exhaustion. They're hopeless. Even if they're only NPCs, killing either of them over a misunderstanding feels wrong. On the other hand, just forgiving them wouldn't fit his character. Then Irayu notices the Inquisitor's long red braid. An idea comes to him. It's ridiculous, but it's also perfect. Irayu tells them that he offered them a chance to leave, yet they chose punishment instead. The threatening words silence both companions. He draws his sword and approaches. The Inquisitor kneels, gripping the mace and preparing for death. The Archmage flinches, believing that Irayu is truly about to take the young priest's life. Irayu swings. His blade flashes past the Inquisitor's neck. A thick red braid tumbles through the air and lands on the ground. For a moment, nobody understands what happened. The Inquisitor slowly touches the newly shortened hair, green eyes widening in shock. Irayu hasn't taken the priest's head. He has only taken the hairstyle. When the stunned Inquisitor asks why, Irayu continues walking away. Outwardly, he remains perfectly cold, warning the priest to look at that severed hair and remember to control that reckless mouth. If the same mistake happens again, it will be the head that rolls. Internally, however, Irayu is delighted with himself. This genius role player has just saved someone's life without breaking character. The Inquisitor's age and mace had also reminded him of the younger sister from his character's prologue. That resemblance made it even harder for him to harm the priest. As the Archmage comforts the shaken Inquisitor, Irayu secretly congratulates himself for eliminating the deadly hairstyle. In his mind, he hasn't just cut the priest's hair, he has removed a death flag. The Inquisitor had better appreciate the favor and live a long life. Irayu leaves the two behind, still wearing his intimidating expression. He doubts that abandoning them will work forever. These are important top-tier NPCs, and the game will probably force them into his path again. Rather than dreading it completely, he finds himself curious about what kind of event they'll trigger next. Behind him, the Inquisitor remains stunned by his mercy. The priest asks the Archmage how someone who has suffered so terribly because of demons could show such restraint. According to the Archmage, Irayu's body is possessed by a demon. He must have endured unimaginable pain, and his hatred for demons should be immense. He also possesses enough strength to unleash that hatred on nearly anyone he wishes. Yet despite having both the power and the reason to kill them, he chose to walk away. The Archmage calls that tolerance. In his eyes, Irayu possesses extraordinary strength of heart. That inner strength may even be the reason he can resist and overpower the demon living inside him. The Inquisitor lowers her head, humbled. After spending most of her life inside the temple, she realizes just how little she understands about the world. Then another realization strikes her. A man with Irayu's strength, restraint, and experience is exactly the sort of person they need. Clutching the severed braid, the Inquisitor suddenly leaps to her feet and declares that they absolutely must convince Irayu to join their journey. The Archmage can only stare after him and sigh beneath the moonlit sky. Irayu wanted to discourage them from following him. Instead, his brilliant act of role-playing has made them admire him even more. The next morning, Irayu is eating at another inn when the red-haired Inquisitor and the White Lion Archmage finally find him. He had expected the game to bring them back eventually. Internally, he jokes that it was considerate enough to give him one peaceful night first. Outwardly, however, he stays faithful to his Demon Knight role. He asks whether his remaining eye is deceiving him or whether the pair ignored his warning to stay away. Irayu considers flipping the table for dramatic effect, but immediately rejects the idea. No amount of role-playing could make him waste perfectly good food. The Archmage asks him to wait and hear them out, promising that he'll lose nothing by listening. Irayu stands to leave. Their presence alone, he says, is already an inconvenience and a loss. Then the Inquisitor blurts out her reason for following him. She wants to learn tolerance from him. Irayu freezes. The Inquisitor explains that she spent her life being taught to show mercy, consider others, and avoid arrogance. Yet after leaving the temple, she failed to live according to those lessons. Irayu was different. Although she falsely accused and attacked him, he repeatedly showed her mercy. She knows forgiving her couldn't have been easy for a man supposedly tormented by a demon. Through his example, she believes she has finally discovered the path she should follow. Her sincerity strikes directly at Irayu's greatest weakness. The Inquisitor is stubbornly earnest, socially awkward, devoted to justice, and painfully clumsy at expressing herself. She satisfies every condition on his favorite character checklist. The priest was also his favorite character in the original Legend of Heroes. His inner otaku wants to comfort her, pat her shortened red hair, and tell her everything is fine. But his cold, demon-possessed warrior would never behave so affectionately. He must endure. When Irayu remains silent, the Inquisitor assumes she has offended him again. She nervously apologizes for speaking out of turn. That only makes her more adorable. Suppressing his emotions, Irayu remarks that meeting someone so determined to seek death is certainly a novel experience. The Archmage desperately insists that they didn't come to provoke him and asks him to listen. Irayu refuses. The only thing he intends to share with people like them is his blade. Then the Archmage mentions Satan. The name of the Demon King immediately captures Irayu's attention. The Archmage asks whether Irayu would still turn his sword against them if they offered him a chance to kill Satan himself. Irayu's expression becomes deadly serious. He demands an explanation. To the Inquisitor and Archmage, the intensity in his remaining eye is terrifying. They believe Irayu hates demons more deeply than anyone they've ever met. Now that Satan's name has been spoken, they're certain that even one lie will cause his enormous blade to tear them apart. The Inquisitor doesn't hesitate. Her life is devoted to the greater good. If she deceives him about this mission, she believes she'd deserve to die. Meanwhile, Irayu is secretly thrilled. The game has already introduced the Satan storyline. The main plot is finally beginning, and the sudden leap in story progression excites him. The Archmage explains what an Inquisitor truly is. In game terms, it's an advanced priest class. Within the world, Inquisitors act as agents of the temple, carrying out its will beyond its walls. The red-haired Inquisitor is remarkably young to hold such a position. She was allowed to leave the temple because she received a divine revelation. According to the Inquisitor, a holy being appeared before her and declared that she was destined to defeat Satan. But she was also warned that she couldn't accomplish the task alone. She'd need to gather companions. She first joined forces with the Archmage. Together, they began searching for people willing and able to help them oppose the Demon King. After witnessing Irayu's strength and unexpected mercy, they decided to recruit him. The Inquisitor admits that they returned despite knowing he might become angry. She then innocently mentions that the Archmage had assured her everything would be fine. The old lion awkwardly clears his throat. Irayu realizes that the Archmage convinced the naive Inquisitor to approach him. Watching her place complete trust in such a questionable plan nearly makes him smile again. She's just too precious. Then Irayu notices something strange about her story. In the original game, his character was supposed to receive the important revelation and become the center of the mission. Yet in this version, the divine message was given to the priest. Has the remake changed the story so completely that the Inquisitor is now the true protagonist? A main quest appears before him, a step towards subduing the Demon King. The Archmage formally invites Irayu to join their campaign against Satan. He has already investigated Irayu's reputation. Irayu is apparently a famous mercenary who specializes in killing demons and never retreats when demons are involved. The Archmage argues that if they destroy Satan, every demon in the land will disappear. For someone who supposedly despises demons as much as Irayu does, there could be no more suitable mission. The Archmage also identifies the Inquisitor as the divinely chosen hero. If Irayu doubts the claim, he can accompany them to a temple. Every temple will confirm her identity and destiny. The two companions wait for his response. Irayu now faces a serious problem. Accepting would destroy the solitary playstyle around which he built his role-playing concept. It would force him into a party with the very NPCs he has repeatedly tried to escape. But refusing would mean abandoning the main quest, the coming battle against Satan. Irayu finally accepts the invitation, but only after warning the Inquisitor and Archmage that their claims about Satan had better be true. The moment he agrees, several notifications appear. The Inquisitor and Archmage have officially become his companions, although their real names remain hidden because Irayu has never bothered asking for them. The main quest, a step towards subduing the Demon King, also updates. He has joined the subjugation force, and his next task is to speak with the Archmage. They leave the Tatara trading post almost immediately. The frightened innkeeper begs Irayu for another chance, while several townspeople attempt to offer him rewards. Those interactions would probably trigger minor quests, but Irayu ignores them. He wants to remain in character and concentrate on the main story. The three depart by carriage. During the journey, Irayu notices the Inquisitor staring at him with sparkling green eyes. She has been watching him like that ever since he agreed to travel with them. He has no idea why. All he has done is threaten her, insult her, cut off her braid, and repeatedly tell her to go away. If the game has an affinity system, then her affection for him should be at the absolute minimum. A new companion tutorial confirms that affinity does exist. Certain NPCs can be recruited as companions, their locations can be tracked, and our guy can give them commands. Their behavior changes according to their affinity, but the exact value is hidden. That makes the Inquisitor's expression even more confusing. Irayu normally destroys his relationships with NPCs while role-playing. Even after joining, he warned the two not to expect him to treat them as allies. The Inquisitor should either fear or despise him. Instead, she looks delighted. Naturally, Irayu's otaku side finds her adorable. With her short red hair and wide eyes, she resembles a tiny kimchi dumpling. Beneath his cold expression, Irayu begins feeling like a proud parent watching an earnest child. The Archmage interrupts his thoughts and asks why he hasn't questioned them about their destination or the divine revelation. Internally, Irayu has a simple answer. They're game characters. He'll learn the next objective when the game chooses to reveal it. In character, he gives a much harsher response. If the revelation turns out to be false, he'll tear them apart. Otherwise, he doesn't care where they go or what they do. They only need to warn him if they encounter anything important. The Archmage interprets this as an extraordinary display of trust. Irayu thinks the old lion is reading far too much into his indifference. The Archmage explains that they're traveling to a temple that requested assistance with purging demons. The Inquisitor adds that, apart from their mission to defeat Satan, they must still answer the temple's calls for aid. As servants of God, they can't ignore people suffering and misery. Irayu dismisses the religious explanation and asks the only practical questions that matter. What kind of demon is involved, and how many are there? Unfortunately, the pair don't know. They only received a report that a demon had been sighted. They must speak directly with the temple's bishop to learn the details. Irayu bluntly calls them incompetent. Another quest appears. Evil lurking in the village. Its objectives are to reach the temple and speak with the bishop. It isn't classified as a main quest, but Irayu doesn't mind. As long as it advances the story, he's willing to follow it. He does have one major concern: time. Irayu estimates that he has only about a day and a half of paid full dive time remaining. At the carriage's slow pace, a huge portion of it will be wasted on travel. Unable to do anything about it, he chooses to sleep. The other two can wake him when they arrive. The Inquisitor smiles warmly and quietly prays that God will grant him peaceful rest. Her unusually high affinity has a reason. The night before, after Irayu cut off her braid and spared her life, the Archmage visited the Inquisitor for a serious conversation. He reprimanded her for offering Irayu her life so impulsively. She was carrying a divine mission, and therefore her life no longer belonged solely to her. If Irayu hadn't shown mercy, the hero destined to oppose Satan could have died before her journey truly began. The Inquisitor accepted the criticism. But she reminded the Archmage that she had nearly killed an innocent man after wrongly deciding he was guilty. The temple's 9th commandment taught that justice was justified violence and therefore had to be used with gravity and caution. A person must never become completely certain of their own justice. If Irayu had died because of her mistake, she wondered how many more innocent lives she might have taken while believing herself righteous. She felt unworthy of becoming the hero. She had failed to understand even one line of God's teachings. Yet Irayu showed her mercy. By sparing her, he gave her a chance to atone, learn, and become better. She believed she deserved death after offering her head, but his mercy allowed her to move one step closer to fulfilling her mission. To the Inquisitor, Irayu was no longer just a frightening mercenary possessed by a demon. He resembled someone delivering divine instruction on God's behalf. Perhaps he was an apostle. That belief explains why she now looks at him with such admiration. The peaceful carriage journey eventually ends, but far later than Irayu expected. Reaching the village takes 3 full in-game days. Irayu is furious. He can hardly believe a full dive game forces players to spend so much expensive time sitting in a carriage. His immersion equipment and full dive solution cost hundreds of thousands of won, and a significant portion has just been wasted on simulated transportation. He chooses to clear the remaining content as quickly as possible. The main quest updates again, directing him to the temple to speak with the bishop. The Inquisitor suggests that they proceed without delay. Before she can finish, Irayu is already gone. He charges through the village at full speed, leaving both companions behind. The Inquisitor hurriedly runs after him, calling for the Demon Knight to wait. The Archmage struggles to keep pace and complains that an old dude can't move so quickly. Then the Archmage suddenly feels uneasy. The village is quiet. Dark birds circle through the moonlit sky, shedding black feathers over the enormous temple. Despite the ominous signs, Irayu reaches the temple first. He expects to speak with the bishop and receive information about the reported demon. Instead, armed members of the temple rush out and surround him. Swords, spears, and shields are aimed directly at his body. Before Irayu can even begin the extermination quest, the very people who requested help have mistaken him for the monster they're supposed to hunt. Before the temple guards can attack Irayu, the Inquisitor rushes between them. She commands everyone to stop and raises her hand. A golden mark shines across her skin, the divine proof that she's the hero chosen by revelation. The armed priests immediately falter. The Inquisitor swears upon her name as the hero that Irayu isn't the demon's servant. He's its victim, a man suffering because a demon possesses his body. Some of the temple guards remain uncertain. They can clearly sense a demonic presence coming from him. A few quietly wonder whether the young hero lacks experience because her revelation was so recent. Others suggest reporting the situation before allowing Irayu inside. The Archmage slams his staff against the ground and orders everyone to be silent. He asks whether they failed to hear the hero's command to lower their weapons. That settles the matter. Since God's chosen representative has spoken, the temple guards reluctantly obey. Their swords and spears descend, though their suspicious expressions remain. One priest offers to guide the group inside. The Archmage quietly asks Ireyu to tolerate the misunderstanding. The guards were frightened and didn't intend to harm him. Ireyu replies that if they had intended harm, he'd have cut them down already. Outwardly, it's another chilling threat from the Demon Knight. Internally, Ireyu is delighted. He loves misunderstanding events. There's something deeply satisfying about watching NPCs falsely accuse his character, only for another important NPC to step forward and resolve everything. The guards' obvious fear also amuses him. They're walking on eggshells around him, terrified that one wrong move will provoke a massacre. But Ireyu's amusement is beginning to fade beneath genuine exhaustion. The game is so realistic that his body and mind feel drained. He chooses to obtain the necessary information and leave as quickly as possible. The group is brought into the temple and meets with the local bishop and several priests. After hearing the available information about the suspected demon, the bishop ends the meeting. He points out that it's already late and offers them prepared rooms. If the dining hall feels uncomfortable, meals can be delivered directly to those rooms. His words sound polite, but Ireyu understands the hidden message. The bishop wants them confined. More specifically, he wants the demon-possessed stranger locked in a private room instead of wandering freely through the temple. Ireyu wonders whether he's being too cynical, but the bishop's passive-aggressive behavior throughout the meeting makes the intention obvious. His enthusiasm for role-playing carried him through the earlier confrontations, but maintaining the act is becoming tiring. Pretending to be a furious, demon-possessed warrior every moment requires more effort than he expected. Even so, his character would never accept hospitality from priests who had just aimed weapons at him. Ireyu refuses the room. He declares that he'd rather sleep in the dirt than rest inside a nest of hypocrites. The bishop is left speechless. At that moment, the investigation quest updates. Evil lurking in the village now offers two possible approaches: questioning the villagers or searching directly for evidence of the demon. Ireyu chooses to search for traces. He believes he already knows what kind of demon is involved, so interviewing witnesses would only waste time. The Inquisitor calls after him and grabs his armored arm, asking him to wait. The instant she touches him, Ireyu jerks away. A violent red aura erupts around his body as he warns her never to touch him. The Inquisitor freezes, then quickly apologizes. The Archmage asks where Ireyu intends to go. Ireyu considers the answer obvious. He's going to kill the demon. Internally, he has an additional reason for rushing ahead. If he stays with the others and follows every intended conversation, the quest will take forever. His remaining full dive time is limited, so he plans to skip as much of the investigation as possible and go directly to the objective. Unfortunately, his companions refuse to be left behind. The Inquisitor announces that she'll accompany him. The Archmage smiles and admits that Ireyu's determination puts an old dude like him to shame. He tells the Inquisitor that they should follow. The bishop watches in shock as both of God's honored representatives walk away with the frightening Demon Knight. The Archmage politely thanks the bishop for his consideration, then explains that their companion isn't the sort of man who can rest while a demon remains nearby. The bishop is visibly distressed. Ireyu, the Inquisitor, and the Archmage leave the temple together. Dark birds circle above the building as the party enters the moonlit village. Ireyu realizes that his companions intend to remain beside him regardless of how badly he treats them. The Archmage suggests finding a witness and gathering information. Ireyu instantly says it's unnecessary. The Inquisitor misunderstands the situation in an endearing way. She assumes that the wise old Archmage has already deduced the demon's identity and is just testing her knowledge. Unable to answer, she turns to Ireyu and respectfully asks for his expert opinion. Her earnest expression nearly makes Ireyu smile like a proud father. He suppresses the urge and responds in character, telling her that he can hardly believe someone so poorly prepared is the hero. The Inquisitor accepts that she has shortcomings, but she firmly warns him not to question the divine will that selected her. Ireyu finds the contradiction adorable. She'll tolerate personal insults, but the moment he challenges God's decision, she becomes stubborn and fearless. Returning to the investigation, Ireyu identifies the creature as a Draugr. The Inquisitor immediately recalls the relevant information. Draugr are associated with a terrible stench and are often born in graveyards, so the village cemetery would normally be the best place to investigate. The Archmage praises her knowledge. The Inquisitor modestly replies that she can't compare to either the Great Sage or the Demon Knight. Once again, Ireyu has to fight back a proud smile. He forces himself to think dark, serious thoughts, so his expression will remain appropriately grim. The Draugr also reminds him of the original game. In that version of the story, the Draugr incident eventually exposed corruption within the village temple and revealed a secret demon worshipper. Irayu wonders how much of that storyline has survived in the remake. Before they can head toward the graveyard, the Inquisitor suddenly smells something unusual. The odor is coming from the village's inner district. She follows the scent through narrow alleys, with Irayu and the Archmage close behind. The streets are dark and silent, so Irayu produces a lantern to illuminate their path. Its light falls upon a figure slumped against a wall. At first, the man appears sick or unconscious. Then he slowly raises his head. His body is thin and twisted. His skin looks diseased, his face is sunken, and his eyes are disturbingly lifeless. He resembles a corpse that has continued moving long after death should have claimed it. The Inquisitor stares at him in horror. She instantly realizes that something is terribly wrong, and from that moment onward, the investigation stops resembling the quest Irayu remembers. This is where everything begins to go horribly wrong. The man they found slumped against the wall is already dead. The Archmage immediately goes to summon the city guards, while the Inquisitor remained beside the body. Irayu stared at the corpse and considered the overpowering stench. Until now, he had assumed the city's unpleasant smell was just an atmospheric detail meant to make the historical setting feel authentic. Apparently, however, a Draugr left this horrendous odor everywhere it passed. Tracking such a creature was going to be miserable. Irayu knelt and confirmed that they had arrived too late. Then his role-playing instincts took over. Speaking in the solemn voice of the Demon Knight, he promised the victim that vengeance would be carried out in his name and ordered his spirit to rest peacefully. The Inquisitor quietly offered to pray for the dead man. Irayu didn't believe in her god, but he had to admit that the whole scene felt wonderfully dramatic. Exactly like a well-directed game cutscene. When the Archmage returned, he assured them that the guards would soon collect the body. More importantly, the victim had died only moments before. The Draugr's scent was still strong, meaning it couldn't have gone far. The Archmage cast a tracking spell. A large blue magic circle appeared, and a glowing trail of demonic energy stretched away from the alley. He warned that the spell wouldn't last very long, though it should remain active long enough to locate their target. Irayu was already running before the old dude could finish. The Archmage sighed that Irayu had once again made him look foolish, then hurried after him with the Inquisitor. As they followed, the Inquisitor purified the demonic residue along their route. Despite preferring solo play for the sake of his role-playing, Irayu had to acknowledge how convenient a party could be. One companion could track the enemy, while another erased the corruption left behind. With support like that, there was almost no chance of getting lost. The glowing trail eventually led them straight into a stone wall. The Inquisitor announced that they had reached a dead end, but the Archmage recognized what had happened. The Draugr had passed directly through the stone. He suggested finding higher ground so they could search for another route. Logically, it was a perfectly sensible plan. But this was a game. Why settle for the sensible solution when he could try something far more interesting? Before either companion could stop him, Irayu launched himself toward the surrounding buildings. He bounded from one wall to another, climbed the narrow gap between them, and vaulted onto a rooftop. The Archmage could only stare after him and mutter about what a reckless man he was. Irayu, meanwhile, was having the time of his life. He wasn't even using a special movement skill, yet he could leap across rooftops as if he had trained for years. The impact against his feet, the wind rushing around his body, and the sensation of his coat trailing behind him all felt astonishingly real. For a brief moment he wondered if he possessed a natural talent for parkour. Then he reminded himself not to get carried away. He still needed to catch the Draugr before the tracking spell disappeared. From his higher vantage point, he located the blue trail again. It stretched across the rooftops, revealing the path the monster had taken. Irayu raced after it, bounding over gaps between buildings while gleefully sinking deeper into his Demon Knight persona. He mocked the Draugr for resorting to such a cheap, vermin-like trick and declared that its game was over. His sinister laughter echoed across the rooftops as he chased it beneath the night sky. Internally, however, Irayu was ecstatic. This game allowed him to run across rooftops, hunt monsters, and deliver absurdly dramatic speeches without anyone questioning him. It was a role-player's paradise. Following the trail to its end, Irayu plunged downward with his sword and landed heavily on the stone. He raised his crimson blade and declared that vengeance would be delivered for the dead. The Draugr revealed itself as a mass of darkness with glaring red eyes. Such creatures deceived human vision by rising from graves and attacking when their victims least expected it. They could move through stone as though swimming through water, allowing them to stalk prey from inside walls and floors. Irayu pointed his sword toward the shadow and declared that their pathetic game of hide-and-seek ended here. Then he noticed something troubling. The Inquisitor and the Archmage were nowhere to be seen. He had assumed the party NPCs would automatically appear near him after he reached the enemy, but apparently that wasn't how this world worked. His reckless rooftop sprint had genuinely left them behind. Of all people, he especially wished his Kimchi Mandu, the Inquisitor, were present to purify the area. The Draugr's stench was unbearable. Worse, watching its shadowy body move in 3 dimensions made it difficult to judge the timing and direction of its attacks. He considered waiting for his companions to catch up. Before he could decide, a voice spoke from the darkness. The speaker said that he had known it was Gretchen. Irayu turned as a hooded figure approached. The stranger was a demon contractor, someone who made bargains with demons and traded away their soul, although it was sometimes difficult to tell whether such people had surrendered themselves to a demon or to their own desires. The contractor seemed delighted to see Irayu. He explained that he had been wondering how to shake off that heretic, apparently referring to the Inquisitor. Now, however, Gretchen had come to him willingly. Then he delivered an even stranger message. The king was looking for Gretchen. Irayu's thoughts immediately descended into chaos. What king? The king of the demon contractors? Why was some mysterious king summoning him? Did the man have a death wish? More importantly, what kind of plot development was this, and how was the demon knight supposed to respond? The contractor misunderstood Irayu's silence. Believing that Gretchen had been captured by the heretic, he offered to rescue her. Afterward, they could go together and enjoy a so-called festival of slaughter. That name continued to bother Irayu. Gretchen. He had played Legend of Heroes, yet he had never encountered anyone by that name. It wasn't part of any storyline he remembered. Irayu slowly readied his sword as a horrifying possibility entered his mind. Had his decision somehow placed him on the demon worshipper route? For a moment, Irayu imagined what would happen if he accepted the demon contractor's invitation. A sinister message would announce that he had made his choice. His humanity would be torn away, granting him forbidden knowledge and power beyond mortal limits. Freed from human restraints, he'd awaken as a true demon knight, complete with demonic wings, horns, and overwhelming magical strength. It certainly sounded like an entertaining alternate route. But Irayu intended to play through the game several times. He could explore the demon worshipper path later. For now, he needed to remain faithful to his current role, a demon knight who despised demons even while carrying one inside himself. The confused contractor addressed him once more as Lord Gretchen. Irayu answered by drawing his sword and unleashing Breaker. The enormous slash tore across the street, but the contractor survived. At the last instant, he had placed the Draugr between himself and the attack, using the creature as a living shield. Terrified, the contractor begged Gretchen for forgiveness. He claimed that he had spoken too presumptuously because he mistakenly believed Gretchen had been captured. Irayu coldly asked whether the man expected mercy. Remaining completely in character, he informed the contractor that not even hell would offer him salvation. Realizing that his supposed ally genuinely intended to kill him, the contractor summoned the Draugr. Shadows gathered around the creature, forming the body of a massive armored knight with a heavy shield. Demonic energy flowed from the contractor into it, greatly strengthening its defenses. Irayu charged. His sword repeatedly collided with the Draugr's shield, but the creature's body absorbed and dispersed the force. Because it was an amorphous monster rather than a solid warrior, his attacks produced almost no physical feedback. It was exactly why Irayu hated fighting monsters without fixed bodies. He couldn't properly feel whether his blade had connected, and the contractor's enhancement magic made the Draugr even more irritating. The easiest solution would be to defeat the contractor first and remove the source of the enhancement. But Irayu also had an experiment he wanted to perform. When he had used Breaker earlier, the skill's effect had remained on his sword and activated during the following attack. Even more strangely, the effect had persisted despite that second strike not being a direct downward blow, the movement normally required to activate Breaker. If that observation was correct, then the skill might be much more flexible than its original game version. Irayu repositioned himself and attacked again. The remaining power of Breaker erupted through his blade. An enormous surge of destructive energy smashed into the Draugr, overwhelming its shield and tearing through its shadowy body. Red light exploded across the street as the monster disintegrated. A quest window confirmed the result. The Draugr had been eliminated. Only one objective remained: capture the demon contractor. With the troublesome obstacle gone, Irayu advanced on the cowering man and declared that the time for judgment had arrived. The contractor desperately tried to save himself by explaining the mission. He had only been ordered to interfere with the Mabel Merchant Guild. If he had known that Lord Gretchen was personally interested in the guild, he never would have touched it. That revelation answered one of Irayu's questions. These demon contractors were apparently responsible for the trouble that had forced him to run around the city from the very beginning. Still convinced that Irayu was Gretchen, the contractor tried offering him something even more valuable. He warned that the heretic traveling with Irayu was no ordinary religious fanatic. That individual was supposedly one of the demon's greatest enemies, a person known as the hero. If Gretchen brought the hero's head to the king, the contractor promised that the king would be greatly pleased. Before Irayu could process that information, his companions finally arrived. The Inquisitor immediately recognized the contractor as someone who had traded both body and soul to demons. Announcing that she'd fight beside the demon knight, she charged with holy power blazing around her. Ireyu was delighted by her timing. After learning potentially useful information from the contractor, he had worried that his merciless demon knight persona would require him to execute the man anyway. Now the rest of his party could interfere and give him a believable reason to leave the enemy alive. The contractor, however, couldn't understand what was happening. Still calling Ireyu Gretchen, he demanded to know why he was betraying them. Ireyu didn't know either. He had no idea whether Gretchen had once been allied with these people, who Gretchen truly was, or why everyone seemed to think that name belonged to him. But he wasn't particularly worried. As far as he was concerned, the story would reveal the answers as he continued progressing. Outwardly, he showed none of that uncertainty. He raised his sword and told the contractor that vermin had no right to question him. The sinner would atone with his death. Ireyu swung. Before the blade could reach the contractor, glowing chains wrapped around it and brought the strike to a halt. The Archmage had intervened. Ireyu glared at him and demanded to know whether he intended to stand in the Demon Knight's way. The Archmage calmly advised him to control his anger. Capturing the contractor would produce far more useful information than killing him. The Draugr they had fought wasn't an ordinary demon. Someone powerful had likely been responsible for summoning and strengthening it. If they interrogated the contractor, they might uncover that hidden mastermind. There were more important things than satisfying a moment of rage. To the others, it looked as though the Archmage had narrowly stopped the furious Demon Knight from murdering their prisoner. Internally, Ireyu was thinking about something much less dramatic. He had only been trying to land one final hit. In most games, capturing an enemy required reducing the target's health below a certain point first. Sure enough, a new window appeared and explained the mechanic. A capture attempt could be made after lowering part of the target's health, but the attempt would fail if the target died. Since the instructions appeared only after the contractor completed his dialogue, Ireyu concluded that the entire exchange had been scripted. The remake had added far more systems than he remembered. He rather liked that. Everything felt comfortably familiar while still offering new mechanics, characters, and storylines to discover. The contractor survived and was taken into custody. By morning, Ireyu and his companions were escorting the prisoner through the halls of a grand building. Armed guards surrounded them as they delivered the contractor for interrogation. Ireyu walked quietly behind the others, still thinking about the remake's unexpected additions. Then, something strange happened. A red warning window appeared beside him. His health had slightly decreased. Another warning immediately followed, then another. Within moments, countless crimson notifications filled Ireyu's vision, each announcing the same thing. His health was continuing to fall. There were no enemies nearby. No one was attacking him, and he hadn't activated a damaging ability, yet his body was steadily losing health for no apparent reason. Sweat formed on his face as the warnings multiplied around him. For the first time since entering the game, Ireyu had no idea what was happening. Ireyu had wanted to remain inside the temple and watch the demon contractor's interrogation. Unfortunately, the farther he ventured into the sacred building, the more warning windows appeared. His health continued to decrease, forcing him to turn around before the mysterious effect could kill him. Once outside, the health loss stopped. Ireyu suspected the cause was the demon sealed inside his armored arm. The temple's holy power might be rejecting its presence, or perhaps this was foreshadowing for a later revelation. Either way, the design was almost absurd. The main story had placed him on a route involving priests and inquisitors, yet his class was apparently forbidden from remaining inside temples. The progression difficulty for a demon knight was ridiculously high. Ireyu loved it. If he had wanted an easy game, he'd never have committed himself to role-playing. Difficult mechanics just made the experience more convincing. In his opinion, role-playing was the ultimate endgame activity for a veteran player, but only when supported by genuine skill. He remembered his experiences in other games. A player could invent the most elaborate personality imaginable, but nobody wanted to party with someone who constantly got the group killed. Proper role-playing required both performance and competence. That thought made him wonder whether the Inquisitor and the Archmage would remain his companions until the ending. Now that both were gone, the courtyard felt strangely quiet. Ireyu had nothing to do while the interrogation continued. His main quest instructed him to speak with the bishop, but he assumed that objective wouldn't become available until the prisoner had been questioned. He was considering how to pass the time when the Inquisitor came running after him. The Inquisitor asked where he was going and eagerly offered to accompany him. Ireyu wondered why this person always appeared the moment he started thinking about them. Was the Inquisitor supposed to be his loyal puppy, or perhaps his servant? He asked why the Inquisitor wasn't participating in the interrogation. The Inquisitor explained that personally questioning the prisoner would only reward a demon worshipper. As the hero and a devoted servant of the temple, the Inquisitor's attention itself would be too great an honor for such a sinner. The Archmage had therefore recommended following the Demon Knight instead. Ireyu instantly understood what had really happened. The Archmage had dumped the excitable Inquisitor on him. When asked whether he had other business, Irayu replied in character. He questioned whether the Inquisitor only hunted demons after someone else gathered all the necessary information. The Inquisitor froze. Then their eyes began sparkling. Believing Irayu had offered profound wisdom, the Inquisitor declared that a valuable lesson had been learned. Someone who fought evil shouldn't wait passively for reports. They should actively search for signs of demonic activity. Irayu hadn't intended to teach anything. He just wanted to find monsters and gain some levels. The Inquisitor appeared to be one of those early-game companions who praised our guy no matter what they said. Irayu found the enthusiasm rather cute. In fact, the red-haired Inquisitor reminded him of a small, talkative dumpling. Unfortunately, Irayu was also an introvert. The endless praise was becoming overwhelming. Only moments earlier, he had felt lonely without his companions. Now, he was already exhausted by having one of them beside him. His emotions were proving remarkably fickle. Since the sun had set, the Inquisitor worried that gathering information would be difficult. Irayu announced that they'd visit the Adventurers Guild. The Inquisitor immediately praised his brilliance again. Adventurers accepted all kinds of requests so the guild might possess information about demons. Internally, Irayu groaned. He didn't dislike the Inquisitor, but his demon knight persona wouldn't allow him to respond warmly. Maintaining his cold, hostile character while traveling beside such an earnest companion was surprisingly difficult. The Archmage joined them, and the three entered Soman's Adventurers Guild. Even the Archmage was impressed by Irayu's decision. Despite being the sage of the Magic Tower, the Archmage admitted that academic knowledge could never completely replace the experience of active adventurers. True learning existed outside the tower. Irayu approached the Night Clerk, presented his adventurer's token, and demanded every available request involving demons. The clerk verified his identity but explained that such requests were rare. Irayu said that even an unconfirmed suspicion would be enough. He'd determine the truth himself. The clerk seemed surprised that the intimidating demon knight could read, but eventually produced one relevant notice. It described frequent deaths in a nearby area. The causes had been difficult to determine, although witnesses had reported a terrible odor around the scenes. The reward was an impressive 500,000 gal, but the temple had already responded to the request. Irayu recognized it as the Draugr incident they had just resolved and returned the notice. The Archmage, meanwhile, became concerned that the temple might claim the entire reward. Since the official request offered nothing new, the Archmage asked about rumors. Had anyone suddenly disappeared? Had peaceful people become violent without explanation? Even uncertain street gossip might help. The Inquisitor and Archmage presented their tokens. The clerk realized that Irayu's companions weren't ordinary adventurers. One was an Inquisitor, and the other was the renowned Sage of the Magic Tower. His behavior changed instantly. He promised to search every corner of his memory for anything useful. Irayu was impressed. Reputation had an actual effect on NPC behavior in this game. At the same time, he felt sorry for the clerk. The poor man had been working a quiet night shift when 3 incredibly important customers appeared and demanded obscure information. It was the fantasy equivalent of being ambushed by executives just before closing time. After thinking carefully, the clerk recalled a peculiar rumor. Adventurers had noticed that the number of pickpockets operating in the city had dropped significantly. There also seemed to be fewer beggars on the streets. The clerk had briefly wondered whether a disease was spreading through the slums, but he rarely visited that district and couldn't confirm anything. The Inquisitor slammed a fist onto the counter. Furious, the Inquisitor demanded to know whether wicked people still existed in Somon who had forgotten the grace of God. Irayu silently told the troublesome little dumpling to calm down, but he had already heard enough. This was obviously a plot hook. Pickpockets and beggars didn't just vanish from an entire district without a reason. Irayu declared that another demon must be lurking somewhere in the city. The clerk was shocked, but the Archmage agreed that the matter deserved investigation. He asked the man to send word to the temple if any additional reports arrived. The exhausted clerk accepted the extra assignment. Irayu felt another wave of sympathy. Getting surrounded by important customers during a night shift and then being given additional work was brutal. Thankfully, the clerk was only game data rather than a genuinely miserable employee. With that comforting thought, Irayu headed for the exit. When his companions asked where he was going, he answered that he was visiting the place where pickpockets and beggars gathered, the slums. The Archmage suggested that they follow, and the Inquisitor eagerly requested permission to accompany the Demon Knight. The Inquisitor still believed there was much to learn from him. As they walked, Irayu continued thinking about the temple's health-draining effect. It had to be foreshadowing. Perhaps the temple would eventually discover the demon inside his arm and mistake him for an enemy. That misunderstanding could lead to an enormous battle against the temple and possibly force him to fight the Inquisitor. The thought already made him strangely sad. After seeing how earnestly the Inquisitor trusted and admired him, how could the game make them become enemies? Then Irayu remembered that nothing had actually happened yet. He was worrying about an imaginary tragedy he had invented himself. If such a conflict truly occurred, he'd probably be thrilled by the dramatic cutscene and enjoy every second of the fight. At that very moment, a new quest appeared, Ominous Omen. Its objectives were to question a pickpocket and speak with a local passerby. Irayu could only admire the quest's suspiciously perfect timing. The Inquisitor asked whether he knew the way to the slums. Maintaining his superior persona, Irayu replied that all places where such people gathered were fundamentally the same. In reality, he just opened the city minimap and searched for the district containing the greatest concentration of red dots. Hostile humans appeared as red markers, just like humanoid monsters. That made the slums easy to locate. Still, Irayu wondered whether bringing his companions into an area packed with hostile residents might create problems. When they arrived, they began questioning the locals. The residents were reluctant to cooperate, but their stubbornness wasn't the greatest issue. The Inquisitor's idea of gathering information was to point an enormous holy weapon at a terrified man and order him to swear before God. Then the Inquisitor demanded an answer to a disturbing question. Was he absolutely certain that the temple had taken the missing people? A few moments before the confrontation with the Beggar King, Irayu and his companions had been walking through the outer slums. The atmosphere was tense. Residents watched them from doorways and dark corners, while Irayu's minimap showed red dots crawling throughout the district. That was hardly surprising. Red markers represented hostile humans as well as monsters, and the slums were filled with thieves, thugs, and other potential enemies. Irayu was waiting for the quest event to begin. Soon, a nervous young pickpocket hurried toward him and deliberately bumped into his body. She apologized and tried to continue walking, but Irayu instantly caught her wrist. She had stolen the coin purse hanging from his belt. Irayu had expected exactly that. Most role-playing games marked monsters, background characters, and quest targets differently. When a quest target had no visible marker, it usually meant the target would approach our guy on its own. To make the encounter easier, Irayu had deliberately removed his coin purse from his inventory and left it exposed. The pickpocket had taken the bait. Remaining in character, Irayu praised her courage and warned that she might be allowed to keep her hands if she cooperated. Internally, he was delighted. His preparation had successfully triggered the event. The Inquisitor was considerably less amused. Quoting religious doctrine, the Inquisitor declared that people must not covet the possessions of others. According to the law of the temple, a thief's hands should be... The Archmage interrupted before the sentence could be completed. Doctrine and discipline were important, the Archmage explained, but rules shouldn't be applied blindly to every situation. The Inquisitor argued that the woman had attempted a crime directly in front of them, yet the Archmage reminded the young hero of the lesson supposedly taught by the Demon Knight. Sometimes mercy was necessary. Had the Inquisitor not claimed to admire Irayu's mercy and wished to learn from it? Rather than acting impulsively, the Inquisitor should approach the situation with patience and a willingness to learn. The Inquisitor reluctantly lowered the weapon. Although she didn't fully understand the reasoning, the Inquisitor trusted that Irayu must have some deeper purpose. Irayu wondered whether a Buddha-like image had just appeared behind him. Apparently, the Archmage had transformed his behavior into a lesson about enlightened compassion. Considering Irayu was supposed to be a merciless demon knight and the Inquisitor served a completely different religion, the imagery felt rather questionable. Meanwhile, the pickpocket demanded to know how long Irayu intended to hold her. Remembering the actual purpose of the encounter, Irayu ordered her to take them to whoever controlled the pickpockets in that part of the city. That was how they found the so-called Beggar King. The Beggar King was a heavyset man who coordinated information among the beggars, pickpockets, and homeless children of the slums. Under the Inquisitor's threatening weapon, he swore that the temple was responsible for the disappearances. He couldn't understand why the Inquisitor was questioning him. In his mind, there was no mystery. Inquisitors had been taking people away for reformation. The accusation infuriated the Inquisitor. Reformation of criminals could only occur during specific periods authorized by the Great Temple. Falsely claiming that an unauthorized reformation had taken place was blasphemy. The Archmage awkwardly pointed out that unauthorized scheduling wasn't the important issue. The important issue was that people had disappeared. The Inquisitor demanded to know what could possibly be more important than someone misrepresenting temple procedure. As the two argued, Irayu reconsidered the situation. He had assumed this investigation was just a follow-up to a side quest. Now he understood why the temple played such a prominent role in the Demon Knight storyline. This was probably where the main story truly began. Irayu silenced the discussion and demanded details. He wanted to know when the disappearances had started, how many people had been taken, and everything the Beggar King had heard. The incidents had begun roughly a month earlier. The kidnappers never took large groups. Only 1 or 2 people disappeared at a time, and the process was conducted quietly. The Beggar King hesitantly compared it to human trafficking. He instantly panicked and withdrew the comparison. Obviously, he wasn't accusing the temple of actual human trafficking. The phrase had just slipped out. Ireyu considered his frightened reaction practically an admission that he believed exactly that. Clarifying that he meant the temple had indeed taken the missing people, Ireyu asked whether the incidents followed a pattern. They did. 1 or 2 people disappeared 2 or 3 times each week. The Inquisitors patrolled the slums according to a fixed schedule, so the Beggar King had warned everyone not to wander the streets during those hours. The Archmage considered the pattern and voiced a horrifying possibility. Could the missing people have been taken as sacrifices to demons? The Inquisitor reacted furiously. The religious order would never participate in anything so monstrous. Ireyu dismissed that certainty as naive. Events didn't cease to exist just because someone refused to believe in them. The words struck the Inquisitor hard. Until now, the young hero's faith in the temple had been absolute. Even the suggestion that fellow clergy might cooperate with demons was almost impossible to accept. Ireyu, however, was thrilled by the development. A protagonist being forced to question deeply held beliefs was a classic path toward meaningful character growth. It might be painful for someone as young and idealistic as the Inquisitor, but shattered convictions were exactly how a character gained real depth. The Inquisitor demanded to know where the missing people had been taken. Unfortunately, the Beggar King didn't know. He only collected reports from the children and thieves working throughout the area. Then the original pickpocket spoke up. She had remained nearby rather than escaping, even after Ireyu released her. Although she didn't personally know the kidnapper's destination, she knew someone who might. If demons were involved, she reasoned, the matter had to be important. The young woman reluctantly stepped closer to Ireyu. Her tough attitude had weakened, but she still tried to act as though she were helping, only because the situation affected everyone. Ireyu instantly liked her. Characters who pretended not to care while secretly helping the party were one of his favorite types. He thought she resembled a feisty stray cat, although he briefly wondered whether that metaphor might be offensive in a world where beastfolk genuinely existed. In his cold demon knight voice, he ordered her to lead the way. The pickpocket guided them farther into the district. As they traveled, the streets grew narrower and more disturbing. Crows gathered around bloodied carcasses, and the buildings appeared increasingly unstable. The young woman eventually stopped before a dark passage and warned that everything beyond it belonged to the real back alleys. If they wanted answers, they needed to put away their weapons. The people living in the inner district were constantly on edge and would react badly to armed strangers. More importantly, they despised anyone connected to the temple. That warning was directed especially at the Inquisitor. The Inquisitor stubbornly replied that there was no desire to associate with thieves in the first place. The pickpocket snapped that she was just trying to prevent the Inquisitor from doing something foolish and dragging her into the consequences. She insisted that she was only helping because the disappearances threatened everyone. Once again, Ireyu found her behavior adorable. She really did seem designed around a prickly stray cat concept. While the party followed her into the inner district, none of them noticed the cloaked figure watching from a nearby rooftop. Green hair showed beneath the stranger's hood as a hand rested near a concealed weapon. Then a crimson system window appeared before Ireyu. Hostile targets detected within 20 meters. He instantly drew his sword. The young pickpocket guiding the party panicked. She had specifically warned everyone to hide their weapons before entering the inner district. Ireyu calmly replied that if someone didn't want him drawing his weapon, they should put away their own first. A cloaked figure stood on the rooftop above them, already armed. The stranger had green hair, cat-like ears, and a tail hidden partially beneath a white cloak. The figure leaped from the roof. Ireyu reacted instantly, turning his sword toward the newcomer before the man's feet had fully touched the ground. The stranger was impressed by his speed. Instead of attacking, the green-haired man studied him. Two-toned hair, a gauntlet covering one arm, an eye patch over the right eye. There could be no mistake. With a mocking smile, the stranger greeted him as Lord Demon Knight. The Archmage and Inquisitor immediately wondered whether Ireyu knew this suspicious man. Ireyu, however, couldn't remember ever seeing him in the original game. Was this another part of the remake's expanded lore? The green-haired man quickly clarified that they weren't personally acquainted. He just knew the Demon Knight by reputation. Ireyu was apparently something of a celebrity. Ireyu understood the setup. The stranger's familiarity didn't require a forgotten relationship. The Demon Knight's infamous reputation had just spread throughout the world. Still maintaining his character, Ireyu asked what the man wanted. Did he expect praise just for recognizing him? The stranger laughed and said he had been about to ask Ireyu the same thing. Why had the Demon Knight come all the way into the inner slums? More importantly, why had he brought the temple's lapdogs with him? The man asked whether Ireyu planned to help the clergy kidnap even more people. The Inquisitor erupted in anger, but the young pickpocket hurriedly stepped between them. She explained that Ireyu's group had come to investigate the disappearances, not assist with them. Ireyu had just been comparing the argumentative pickpocket and inquisitor to angry cats. Now a literal cat-like man had appeared, and his metaphor was becoming increasingly confusing. The pickpocket added that demons might be involved. The green-haired man's mocking expression disappeared. If demons had taken the children, he realized, then the temple might truly be involved in something terrible. Ireyu warned him not to jump to conclusions. They hadn't yet confirmed who was responsible. They had entered the district precisely because they intended to uncover the truth. The Archmage spoke more gently. The man's trust in the temple had clearly fallen to nothing, but Ireyu's party had come from outside the city. They had no loyalty to Simon's local temple and could investigate it as outsiders. If everyone cooperated, they might prevent more people from disappearing. After considering the request, the green-haired man agreed. He called one of his hidden subordinates and ordered him to report the situation. The subordinate asked whether he truly intended to accompany the group personally. The man said that he did. Whatever happened, he could protect himself. The quest Ominous Omen has been updated. Their next objective was to travel to the location where the missing people had been taken. Ireyu wondered whether their new guide belonged to the Thieves Guild or the Information Guild. The man looked strangely familiar, but the darkness and his altered design made it impossible to identify him. The green-haired guide told them to follow and immediately raced through the streets without waiting. The party chased after him. The Archmage complained about being forced to run around at such an advanced age, but refused to slow everyone down. A spell activated beneath their feet. Haste. The entire party accelerated. Ireyu appreciated the speed enhancement. The situation felt like a pattern control quest, one where our guy had to follow an NPC through a specific route without losing sight of them. He checked the remaining duration of his full dive session. With his time running low, he wondered whether he could complete the quest before the system forced him to disconnect. Their pursuit carried them out of the slums and into Simon's commercial district. The green-haired guide finally stopped beside a modest building and announced that they had arrived. The Inquisitor stared at it in disbelief. It was a vegetable shop. According to their guide, the missing people had been taken inside. The ordinary storefront was only a disguise. The Archmage immediately sensed a magical barrier surrounding the property. It had been created by someone highly skilled and was concentrated around the warehouse and basement. The guide confirmed the discovery. A powerful concealment barrier prevented outsiders from noticing what happened below the shop. At once, Ireyu's quest updated again. Find a way inside and locate traces of the kidnapped people. That confirmed the guide's information. This was definitely the correct location. The Archmage considered how to enter. Because the barrier had been designed primarily for concealment rather than defense, breaking it shouldn't be especially difficult. Ireyu checked the quest description. It didn't mention sneaking. That settled the matter. He announced that he was going inside through the front. The green-haired guide stared at him as though he had lost his mind. A direct assault would alert every guard in the building. Worse, they knew nothing about the number of enemies or the interior layout. Ireyu didn't care. He drew his sword and declared that kidnapping was a far worse crime than trespassing. Anyone too frightened to continue could remain outside. Internally, his reasoning was far less impressive. He was becoming tired as the full dive session approached its limit, so he had just said whatever came to mind. Besides, the others were party NPCs. They'd inevitably follow him regardless of what he did. Ireyu strode toward the vegetable shop alone. Watching him leave, the green-haired guide asked whether the demon knight was always this reckless. The Archmage laughed. They had known Ireyu for less than a week, so it was difficult to say. Even so, the Archmage believed he was a man of exceptional ability and conviction. The Inquisitor agreed. Just one day earlier, they had captured a genuine demon contractor and imprisoned him inside the temple. The green-haired man was stunned to learn that such a dangerous prisoner was being held there. The Inquisitor continued thinking through the implications. It was difficult to accept, but if the local temple truly was cooperating with a demon contractor, and if its members were gathering people for a demonic sacrifice, then they had no time to waste. The Inquisitor gripped both shield and weapon, then told the guide that he could hide if he was afraid. He had already done enough by leading them there. The Archmage proudly observed that the Inquisitor's thinking had become much deeper. The Inquisitor credited the change entirely to watching the Demon Knight and reflecting upon his actions. The green-haired guide could only stare. Ireyu had charged into a guarded building without intelligence or preparation, and somehow his companions had interpreted it as a courageous, strategic decision. Worse, his reckless behavior was inspiring them to follow. The guide muttered that the job was going to be the death of him and rushed after them. By the time everyone entered the vegetable shop, Ireyu was already waiting inside. Vegetables were scattered across the floor. 2 guards had been defeated, bound, and forced to their knees. Ireyu stood calmly between them, completely unharmed and ready to proceed. He looked at his companions and asked whether they were really planning to remain outside. He had already secured the shop, located the route downward, and finished preparing to enter the basement. Ireyu heads through the opening beneath the vegetable shop and discovers a long hidden staircase. To our guy, an underground passage can only mean one thing. A regional boss fight is probably waiting below. That makes this the perfect place to finish the quest before logging out. The others soon catch up, and the Inquisitor stares at the defeated guards before praising Ireyu for subduing everyone without mercy. Cutie is just as impressed, though Ireyu brushes off their admiration and coldly warns them to leave if they're getting scared. Behind that stern performance, however, our guy is thrilled. He has been waiting to experience a proper battle with an NPC party. As they descend, the Inquisitor feels an unpleasant tingling sensation. A powerful concentration of demonic energy is rising from beneath them, meaning the kidnappers are preparing some kind of ritual. The Archmage instantly casts haste over the entire group, and they rush down the remaining stairs. Ireyu starts wondering how advanced the game's party mechanics will be. Will his companions understand formations? Will they protect the spellcaster and coordinate their attacks without being told? This is his first chance to find out. At the end of the passage stands the entrance to the Soman hidden underpass. Ireyu doesn't bother opening it carefully. He kicks the door apart, sending both the shattered wood and one unlucky cultist flying into the chamber. The underground hall is packed with hooded worshippers. Their summoning ritual isn't finished yet, and panic spreads through them when they realize the so-called hero has found their hideout. The party enters behind Ireyu while radiating holy and magical power. The Inquisitor proudly announces that the cultist's executioner has arrived. The cultists know they can't win in a direct fight, but they only need to delay the intruders long enough to complete the summoning. One of them raises a sphere of demonic energy and invokes the slaves of hell. Purple mist flows through piles of old bones, causing dozens of skeletons to rise. The system identifies them as low-level demons created when demonic energy enters abandoned remains. The Archmage asks for protection while preparing a spell, and the Inquisitor eagerly agrees, declaring that God is with her. But before their formation can properly settle, Ireyu charges straight into the enemy ranks. He sweeps through the skeletons with his greatsword, smashing bones apart before they can surround the party. Fully committed to his character, he proclaims victory to his sword and glory to the heavens, then declares that he'll never surrender his place at the vanguard. The Inquisitor is overwhelmed by his strength, but she refuses to let him carry the battle alone. If Ireyu is the vanguard, then she'll become the shield that protects it. Surrounded by holy light, she slams into the remaining skeletons and crushes them beneath her shield and mace. Ireyu is pleased by the NPC's initiative until he notices something alarming. His experience bar is barely moving. If his companions kill the monsters, he apparently receives little or no experience. That realization instantly makes party combat much less attractive. Before he can think any further about the quest mechanics, another cultist begins a darker invocation. He offers prepared flesh and blood while calling forth darkness and death upon the land. Towering shadow creatures known as Draugr materialize behind the skeleton army. The summoner also seems to recognize something about Ireyu's demon knight persona. Calling him Greiken, the cultist accuses the supposed traitor of betrayal and orders the demons to make Ireyu the first sacrifice. A mass of black energy and clawing shadows swallows the demon knight. His companions fear the worst, and the Inquisitor desperately charges forward to rescue him. But inside the swarm, Ireyu is perfectly calm. Being surrounded actually makes things easier, because every monster has gathered within range of a single attack. He springs into the air, raises his enormous sword, and brings it down using ground crash. The impact devastates the chamber. The floor erupts, stone shatters, and a pillar of dark purple force tears through the summoned monsters. Skeletons and Draugr alike are blown apart. Even the Inquisitor, protected behind her shield, is stunned by the sheer power of the attack. The surviving cultist can hardly believe what he has witnessed. As Ireyu emerges from the dust surrounded by ominous red and black energy, the dude again cries out the mysterious name, Greiken. Terrified, he orders every remaining skeleton to kill Ireyu immediately. The undead rush forward while the cultists scream at them to hurry, but it makes no difference. Ireyu cuts through the horde and advances on the cultists. One begs him to stay away while another runs for his life. Ireyu follows without wasting a second, condemning them as vermin and sending them toward the deepest depths of hell. A final surge of demonic sword energy sweeps through the chamber and cuts down the remaining enemies. Internally, our guy admits that he was actually scared for his life. The fight was short, intense, and strangely lonely. System notifications appear around him. His health has decreased, and a new skill called Terror of the Abyss is now available to learn. The power he just displayed seems excessive for such an early part of the game, but that worries him more than it reassures him. In any truly difficult game, receiving an overwhelmingly powerful skill early usually means the enemies ahead will remain brutal, even with it. Irayu finally turns to check what his companions are doing. The Inquisitor is still fighting with complete devotion. She charges through the remaining undead, crushing them with her shield and mace while declaring that she'll fulfill her duty to the very end. Behind her, Cutie impatiently asks how much longer she needs to protect the Archmage. The Archmage calmly replies that he's finally ready to contribute. He raises his staff and forms a massive blue magical sphere overhead before unleashing Vanish Evil. Ghostly blue fire floods the chamber and consumes the remaining skeletons and cultists. The enemies scream that they're burning even though the spell looks like water. Watching the late but devastating attack, Irayu wonders whether he accidentally pressured the NPCs by asking what they were doing. Cutie sarcastically welcomes the Archmage for finally joining them. Once the flames disappear, Cutie asks whether they eliminated everyone. The Inquisitor believes they cleared out the remnants, although capturing one or two cultists alive for questioning would have been better. Irayu spots a wounded survivor beneath the bodies. He walks over and pins the cultist beneath his boot. Even while half dead, the dude glares up at him and warns that Irayu will regret everything. Then the cultist addresses him by a name that makes the entire party pause, Lord Lechen. The mysterious name that was difficult to hear during the fighting is finally clear. These cultists seem to recognize Irayu's Demon Knight avatar as someone important to their order. Before the man can reveal more, Irayu grabs him by the throat. Remaining perfectly committed to his character, he orders the vermin to stay silent and declares that no name of his should ever be spoken by someone like him. Instead of showing fear, the cultist smiles. He promises that everything will proceed according to Irayu's supposed will. The cultists always knew they were expendable, but Irayu should never forget one thing. Their king is still searching for him. The cultist's body suddenly collapses into blood. The crimson liquid strikes the ritual circle, and demonic energy explodes throughout the chamber. The Inquisitor shouts for Irayu to retreat, but the entire floor has already become part of the summoning formation. Red currents twist around the party and the unconscious captives. A violent surge blasts Irayu and the Inquisitor across the room. The Inquisitor instantly asks if he's hurt, only for Irayu to snap at her for failing to notice his obvious condition. Internally, he groans over his aching back and spine. Even with his pain sensitivity lowered, the impact hurts like hell. Then something enormous begins rising from the completed ritual. A towering reptilian demon emerges with massive jaws packed with poisonous fangs. The system identifies it as a knocker, a demon said to swim through water, hide in wells, and drag humans away. Venom constantly drips from its teeth. Even Cutie's confidence begins to crack as he wonders whether their small party can defeat something so monstrous. Irayu examines everything from a player's perspective. No quest appeared telling them to prevent the summoning, meaning they were probably never capable of stopping it. The ritual is a mandatory event, and defeating the summoned demon is the real objective. The knocker roars and lunges. The Inquisitor instantly steps forward and orders everyone to stand behind her. Raising her enormous shield, she prays for the strength to stand against evil. The knocker slams its head and claws down with tremendous force. The floor cracks beneath the Inquisitor's feet, but she holds her ground. Her shield absorbs the attack, while her raw strength stat prevents the demon from crushing the formation. Irayu is genuinely impressed. The physical power of a dedicated tank is ridiculous. At the same time, his damage dealer instincts make her strategy look completely insane. She could have just dodged sideways. To him, standing still and deliberately receiving the full force of an attack feels totally unnatural. Cutie seems to share his concern. He asks whether holding the line like this is truly the right move, then desperately demands that the Archmage reveal the knocker's weakness. The Archmage begins explaining that its fangs carry deadly poison, but Cutie cuts him off and tells him to skip the useless trivia. He only wants a target they can attack while the Inquisitor holds it back. The weak point is the head, and that is all Irayu needs to hear. Since the Inquisitor went through the trouble of tanking so beautifully, he chooses to fulfill his own duty as the party's main damage dealer. Irayu launches himself upward and races along the demon's enormous body until he reaches its head. He grips his greatsword with both hands and activates Breaker. A towering column of black and purple energy erupts from the blade. The strike crashes directly through the knocker's head, sending a tremendous spray of blood over the Inquisitor, Cutie, and the Archmage below. Irayu lands amid the gore and wreckage. Then he looks down in confusion. The result of his attack isn't anything like what he expected. Irayu's breaker has completely severed the knocker's head. The surviving cultists stare in disbelief. A knocker's scales are supposed to be as hard as steel, yet the demon knight just decapitated it with one blow. Irayu is every bit as shocked as they are. Boss battles are normally built around multiple health bars, breakable body parts, and special mechanics that grow more dangerous as the fight continues. Players enjoy studying those patterns before slowly conquering the enemy. A boss isn't supposed to lose its head after one ordinary skill. Even in the original game, the knocker couldn't be killed through decapitation alone. Irayu wonders what the developers were smoking when they redesigned it for virtual reality. Then he thinks about another possibility. Maybe the battle isn't over. The knocker's headless body suddenly moves. Its massive tail whips toward Irayu's blind spot while he's distracted by the severed head. Kodi reacts first. He rushes forward, intercepts the attack, and warns Irayu to watch his back. Irayu is impressed by the NPC's help. Under the chamber's brighter light, he also notices something familiar about Kyuidi's clothing and weapons. His appearance matches the game's official design for the bandit class, although Irayu can't remember which specialization he belongs to. Kyuidi notices the demon knight staring and gets nervous. He awkwardly apologizes for interfering, claiming that a warrior as great as Irayu would obviously never be injured by a mere tale. Assuming he has overstepped his place, Kyuidi quickly tries to retreat. Irayu wants to explain that he was only thinking about Kyuidi's class. But his role-playing persona would never casually discuss game mechanics or possible party recruitment. He chooses to remain in character and figure out later whether Kyuidi can permanently join his party. For now, the headless knocker needs to die. The system identifies its new form as the headless knocker. After consuming countless sacrifices, it's making one final struggle. The description orders the party to strike its true weak point. Most NPCs believe a monster's weak point is its head. The Archmage said the same thing because it was the simplest explanation. But Irayu knows better. The knocker's true weakness is its reverse scale, a single scale growing backward from all the others. In Eastern legends, dragons can be killed by striking this vulnerable point, and several draconic monsters in Legend of Heroes use the same mechanic. The reverse scale is normally hidden at the beginning of a fight. A player must first lower the monster's health or destroy another body part before it appears. Decapitating the knocker has revealed it. Irayu locates the backward scale and charges. Using his cold demon knight voice, he tells the creature that it's clinging to life in vain and that its struggle will end here. Normally, piercing the reverse scale instantly finishes the battle. A thrusting skill will also create the most dramatic ending. There is only one problem. Irayu spent his remaining skill points learning ground crash, so he doesn't have enough points to unlock a proper thrusting technique like Stinger. He prepares to use ground crash anyway, but the moment he wishes for a thrusting attack, his body moves differently. Dark purple energy gathers around his sword, and Irayu drives the blade straight into the reverse scale. The unlearned thrust activates perfectly, pierces the knocker's true weakness, and destroys the demon. The creature collapses and begins disappearing. Irayu stares at the remains in confusion. He definitely tried to activate ground crash, yet the game produced the exact thrusting movement he imagined. He never purchased that technique. Is it a recognition error, a hidden mechanic, or some ridiculous bug? Before he can investigate, the surviving cultist screams another name at him, Gretchen. The man accuses Irayu of betraying their king and can't understand how Gretchen could turn against the demon cult. The Inquisitor restrains the cultist and asks whether the demon knight wants to perform the execution himself. Irayu's actual plan is to finish the quest, log out, and report the mysterious skill activation to the developers. But the cultist is revealing information connected to his avatar's hidden identity. Remaining in character, Irayu approaches the terrified man and invites him to keep talking. He darkly wonders how much of his wrath the cultist can endure. The Archmage interrupts, not to spare the prisoner, but to request a clean execution. The body must be submitted to the temple as evidence, and the man has already said far too much. Irayu reluctantly accepts and beheads him. With the immediate threat gone, the party prepares to gather the surviving victims and pray for the dead. Before they leave, Kyuidi asks for a favor. Many corpses scattered through the chamber belong to his comrades and their families. He wants to take one surviving cultist back alive so that those who lost loved ones can get revenge and finally find peace. The Inquisitor instantly refuses. No matter how tragic their situation is, private punishment remains illegal. She promises that the temple will hold a solemn memorial service for the victims instead. Kyuidi bitterly asks how comforting that ceremony will be when it's conducted by the same temple whose members murdered their families. The Inquisitor insists that the demon worshippers are only a small group of apostates. Other branches will thoroughly investigate the corrupted temple and conduct the memorial with proper respect. Kyuidi doesn't trust that promise. He wonders whether his people will just be branded as thieves and buried beside the cultists. Their argument quickly becomes personal. The Inquisitor declares that theft will still be punished under the law, while Kyuidi accuses the temple of demanding payment even from people it wrongfully allowed to die. She fires back by accusing him of using the dead to justify stealing. Before their quarrel becomes a fight, Irayu intervenes and allows Kyuidi to take one prisoner. The Inquisitor protests, but Irayu reminds her that blindly enforcing the law has already failed. If she had arrested the pickpocket immediately and ended everything there, they never would have discovered the hidden cult or rescued its victims. She should remember that lesson. But Irayu's permission comes with a threat. If the demon worshipper escapes, Kyui's head will roll beside his. Kyui accepts the condition and promises that no escape will happen. The decision fits Irayu's Demon Knight persona and strengthens his relationship with a possible future companion. Unfortunately, the Inquisitor now stares at him with obvious disappointment. Internally, he apologizes to the little kimchi dumpling, but maintaining his character comes first. The main quest, Ominous Omen, updates with its remaining objectives. Move to the temple and find the traitors inside it. Irayu is pleased because the quest finally looks close to completion, but his entire body aches even with the pain setting reduced. He wants nothing more than a hot shower and a long sleep. Since the immediate battle is over, he tries to log out and rest. A red system message appears informing him that the command is unavailable. Confused, Irayu tries again, but the same warning appears every single time. No matter what he does, the game refuses to let him log out. Irayu repeatedly orders the game to log him out, but every attempt produces the same red warning. The command is unavailable. At first, he can only stare at the messages. A logout failure in a virtual reality game isn't some minor bug. It's the kind of disaster that can destroy a game's reputation overnight. He forces himself to calm down because there has to be a simple explanation. Maybe the logout function is temporarily disabled because he's still inside a dungeon. If he returns to the surface or finishes the active quest, it might become available again. Unfortunately, the other party members can't see his system messages. All they see is the Demon Knight standing in silence while repeatedly muttering the mysterious word logout. The Inquisitor nervously asks whether he can see something invisible to them. When Irayu doesn't answer, she consults the Archmage. The Archmage explains that people possessed by parasitic demons normally lose their minds and become little more than zombies. Irayu looks different. He seems to be suppressing the demon inside him, maintaining control while using its power. To them, his strange behavior is proof of a terrible internal battle. Irayu suddenly begins walking toward the exit. The Inquisitor asks where he's going, and he answers in character that he intends to execute the corrupted people who conspired with demons. His actual reason is much simpler. He wants to leave the dungeon and try logging out again. As he walks, Irayu keeps whispering the command beneath his breath. The Inquisitor thinks he looks unwell and asks whether the Archmage can sense any demonic energy. The Archmage finds nothing immediately dangerous, but he solemnly concludes that the Demon Knight must still be fighting the demon inside his own body. That explanation deeply moves the Inquisitor. While Irayu desperately tries to access a menu, she watches his back with admiration, believing he's silently enduring an unimaginable spiritual struggle. Kyui asks whether something is wrong with him. The Archmage admits he can't be certain, especially since Kyui and Irayu haven't traveled together for long. Kyui notes that the Demon Knight doesn't seem like the kind of man who talks about himself anyway, and the Archmage praises his observation. Kyui cheerfully calls himself a lowly bandit who survives by his wits, prompting the Inquisitor to warn him to watch his tongue. The Archmage then gives Kyui one final warning about the captured cultist. Unless Kyui plans to transport the prisoner under the protection of holy power, he should kill the demon contractor before anything unexpected happens. Kyui wonders whether the prisoner can still be dangerous after losing his tongue and limbs. The Archmage explains that demonic power doesn't follow the rules of ordinary magic. Those injuries might delay the prisoner, but they can't guarantee anyone's safety. Kyui promises to kill him before sunrise. The party climbs out of the hidden passage and returns to Somen's commercial district. The Inquisitor prays for guidance along the righteous path and starts leading them toward the temple again. Before leaving, Kyui approaches Irayu. Bandits never forget grudges, but they also never forget favors. He promises that he'll repay the debt he owes the Demon Knight someday. Irayu curtly tells him that he doesn't need repayment. Kyui insists, and Irayu repeats that he needs absolutely nothing. Internally, he adds that the only thing he wants is a working logout function. His increasingly irritated responses convince Kyui that Irayu hates him. Kyui apologizes and says he'll leave for now. Even while panicking, Irayu is amazed by how naturally the AI understands his tone and reacts to it. The main quest remains active, ordering him to move to the temple and find the traitors inside. But Irayu no longer cares. He opens the settings window and repeatedly presses the logout option, but every attempt fails. As the seriousness of the situation sinks in, he starts thinking about his real body. He lives alone. As a webtoon author with no immediate deadline, he has no coworkers waiting for him to show up. He also bragged to his friends that he planned to spend his free time playing Legend of Heroes, so they won't call or visit for a while. If he really is trapped inside the full dive capsule, no one will notice anytime soon. Then he remembers the hardware's safety systems. The VR equipment is supposed to have emergency functions for system failures. Even if the game's software is broken, the capsule itself should still be capable of forcibly ending the connection. Irayu shouts the emergency protocol and orders a capsule force out. The system rejects that command too, once again informing him that it's unavailable. His fear finally turns into rage. Ireyu abandons his careful Demon Knight performance and starts screaming at the game to quit. He curses the developers, demands a force out, and repeatedly shouts for the game to log him out in the middle of the commercial district. The Inquisitor and Archmage rush toward him in alarm. They ask what is happening and beg him to speak, but Ireyu is too consumed by panic to answer. The commotion attracts a group of city guards. The Archmage notices them approaching and gets worried. The Inquisitor fears that the Demon Knight is finally losing control of the power inside him. If he goes berserk in the crowded district, the consequences will be disastrous. Yet even then, she realizes that she knows almost nothing about the man traveling beside her. She quickly goes behind his back and smacks Ireyu across the face with her mace. She orders him to regain control and sends him crashing behind her shield. The blow leaves his cheek bruised and bleeding. Ireyu is completely bewildered. He expected the guards to question him, not for a party member to suddenly rearrange his face. For a moment, he wonders whether this is a plot twist revealing that the Inquisitor is secretly a demon worshipper. Worse, the attack hurts far more than it should. His reduced pain setting doesn't seem to be working at all. The Inquisitor approaches and says she knew one blow wouldn't be enough to bring him down. Ireyu prepares for another attack, but she suddenly smiles in relief. She's glad that his right arm has calmed down. According to her wild interpretation, the demon Ireyu has been suppressing just tried to break free. His shouting, frantic movements, and loss of composure were all signs that he was fighting for control of his body. She assures him that she never doubted him. She firmly believes he'll eventually conquer the demon and never surrender. If it happens again, he should trust her. She'll restrain him and buy as much time as necessary until he regains his senses. Ireyu has absolutely no idea what she's talking about. He demands an explanation from the Archmage, who seriously asks whether he's truly all right. The sudden drama feels absurd. Everyone looks like they started reciting lines from a scripted event without warning. Annoyed, Ireyu asks whether their eyes are only decorations. Then he finally pieces everything together. While he was desperately trying to log out, the party believed that the demon sealed inside his right arm was attempting to escape. Naturally, something like that would trigger his character's old trauma of nearly losing his body to the same demon. The ridiculous logout error completely destroyed his immersion, but playing this kind of tormented character comes so naturally to him that he barely needs to think. Returning to his Demon Knight persona, Ireyu coldly declares that he has no time to waste on fools who can't distinguish between him and the demon. The Archmage refuses to drop the subject. Even if Ireyu dislikes the question, the old mage needs an answer. Is there truly no problem with his right arm? Ireyu instantly treats the concern like an accusation and asks why the Archmage's own hypocrisy has suddenly begun bothering him. The Archmage clarifies that he doesn't mean to insult him, they're just worried about the thing he's suppressing. Ireyu answers that he'll continue hunting and killing demons. He doesn't care what anyone thinks of him. They only travel together because they share the same goal, and their time would be better spent destroying another demon than discussing his feelings. The Archmage finally asks the real question. Is there any chance that Ireyu could eventually become the same demon he's suppressing? Before Ireyu can answer, the Inquisitor steps between them and declares that such a thing will never happen. She has complete faith in the Demon Knight's reason and will. No human can remain entirely whole by themselves. People must trust one another and move forward together. She believes there is a purpose behind their meeting and promises to remain by Ireyu's side, enduring his struggle until he fully awakens and overcomes the demon. Ireyu is stunned. They only met recently, yet the Inquisitor is already offering him seemingly unlimited trust and affection. Even though he knows this is part of the game's story, her speech perfectly appeals to his love of deeply immersive roleplay. As a devoted immersion fanatic, he feels like he has no choice but to dedicate his entire soul to the scenario. His panic over logging out suddenly fades. The logout system will surely start working eventually. For now, he wants to see where the storyline goes. Ireyu sighs and mutters that there is no fixing the Inquisitor's eyes. She mistakenly thinks he's referring to an injury and happily assures him that her eyes are perfectly healthy. She even thanks him for worrying. The Archmage quietly explains that Ireyu probably wasn't talking about physical damage. Before they can continue, Ireyu sprints toward the temple. The Inquisitor shouts for him to warn them before running away, while the Archmage complains that forcing an elderly man to chase him is abuse. As they follow, the Archmage privately asks whether the Inquisitor is certain about trusting Ireyu. The power he displayed beneath the city exceeds anything they've ever witnessed, but it's dangerously unstable. If the demon consumes him and he goes berserk, the Archmage doubts that either of them can stop him. The Inquisitor admits she has concerns too. During Ireyu's panic, she saw genuine fear in his eyes. A warrior like him wouldn't be frightened by an ordinary enemy. She believes the demon in his arm must have directly threatened his mind. She remembers the doctrine that fear and doubt create cracks through which evil can enter the soul. Unfortunately, she lacks both the power to save Irayu and the eloquence to comfort him properly. Even so, she wants to ease his fear. She chooses to trust the goodwill that has protected him from the demon until now. If she can't save his soul directly, she'll use her strength to protect his will. The Archmage accepts her decision and promises to contribute whatever power he possesses. Meanwhile, Irayu reaches the temple and discovers that he can't enter the quest area alone. He impatiently waits for the two companions he just abandoned. Once they arrive, the party enters the magnificent temple. Priests and attendants instantly begin whispering about the ominous stranger accompanying their deputy. Irayu makes no effort to hide the demonic energy surrounding him, making everyone deeply uncomfortable. The Inquisitor silences the room by striking her mace against the podium. She asks whether every member of the temple has assembled. A senior priest reports that 7 people remain unaccounted for, but everyone else is present. Invoking her authority as an Inquisitor, she formally begins a trial. Every person's sins will be tested. Those found innocent will be released, but anyone unclean, including any traitor pretending to serve God, will face righteous judgment. The main quest updates and orders the party to find, subdue, or eliminate the traitors within the temple. Our guy can only wonder what kind of ridiculous quest the game has dragged him into now.